I saw a meme that said that was going to be the saying of 2020. Your mute is on.
It's true.
Love it.
That's a good one. I just noticed it like the one day that, I don't know, when it was first kind of being posted a lot. Mine seemed to be like, I was down 9 titles or 9 sales one morning. And then throughout the week, they all kind of came back. So I don't know if they were new or the returns, or like, how do you even know the details in your dashboard?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like,
Well, that's what's so great about the groups. Keeps us all kind of in the loop in a way. Before I found any of the groups, I was on my own. I had no idea that there was a life,
oh
in
my God, me
Facebook
too.
yeah.
I had no idea. I like went through this all by myself for so long. And then I was like, what? There's Facebook groups?
And
This
it's
is
such
great.
a lonely job. And once you start meeting people, it's wonderful.
It's so true.
Yeah.
You're quarantined anyway to a great extent because of the pandemic, and then you're spending your time sitting in a studio anyway. Boy, it's just really on your own. So having you folks to reach out to is great.
Yeah, I agree. How is the pandemic going where you guys are? Is it really out of control, or like is it affecting you and your jobs, or?
Well, I'm in the Ottawa area around there. I'm actually in Quebec, but about 30 minutes from the big city. And so I'm in the country, which is great, but our little village is fine. But Ottawa, it's pretty nasty these days. So
that's so
I stay clear.
difficult.
Yeah. Anybody
what about
else?
you, Denise?
I'm in Kelowna, which is, the numbers are starting to come up, but BC, British Columbia has been pretty good, although we are definitely experiencing a second wave. But I'd love to hear from someone from the States, what kind of things are happening there.
I'm in the great state of Florida.
Oh, what? Tell us all about it, Dave.
Well, I see on a lot of, like there's a Dr. Fauci group that I belong to. We love Dr. Fauci.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people saying, well, are you going south for the winter? Would you go to Florida? I'm telling people, well, you got a choice. It's either cold and you're digging snow, or you come south and you realize that you're going to have to limit your activities. I mean, I don't leave my condo to do much of anything. I mean, I can go to the beach, I can go to the pool, and it's 82 degrees right now. So, it's quite different from what you might be having, but I don't go anywhere. I don't even go to the grocery store, although a lot of people do.
Where in Florida are you?
I'm in South Florida, just above Fort Lauderdale, in a town called Pompano Beach.
I'm in Hollywood. So.
Oh, you're in Hollywood. Well, see,
yes.
Wow, where my niece lives in Hollywood on Washington Street.
Oh, I used to live off of Washington on Adams.
There you go.
So it's a small world, but yeah, our whole lives are a little different. We, don't eat in restaurants. We don't, we cut shopping. Instead of, I would go to the store every day, and now I go once a week or once every other week. I have to have a planned attack. And we walk around with these everywhere. I'm in my office right now.
But not enough people walk around with these.
No, you're correct.
So, so you guys are both in Florida?
Yes.
We're about cool. 35 minutes away from each other.
And do you know each other or no?
No.
Oh, okay. No. Wow. So how's the voting coming along?
Florida is actually one of the best states for voting. I mean, you hear all these terrible things about Florida, and what's happened in the past did happen in the past. But in Florida, you can vote. Anybody can vote early. Anybody can vote by mail if they want. And you can look online. Oh, and the votes are counted as they're received. not waiting till election day. So you can look online, and my vote was received, and then the next day I saw that it was counted. So my vote's been counted. And on election
Great.
night, I don't know if Florida will be called as a state one way or the other, but it has a much better chance of being called than a lot of other states where they have millions of early votes that they, by law, can't start counting till election day.
Wow.
Wow. That
They
is so
say that
stressful.
they
So
say
it will
that
be
here.
election week.
Right, right.
They
Well,
say that
Florida
here
has
in
it
Florida,
together.
75% of the people will have already voted in Florida before election day.
Right, already more than half as many people as voted in the last presidential election have already cast votes.
Oh my goodness
Wow.
sakes.
Wow. Yay, Florida.
Yeah, no kidding. You guys must feel pretty good then, hey?
It's just so weird to be praising Florida for something having to do with elections.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a governor who doesn't believe in taking action against coronavirus.
Right.
He doesn't believe in mandating anything.
Yeah.
You know,
So it's the people's state. If they're going to save from corona, it's going to be based on you guys wearing your masks and whatever.
yeah, I mean, in South Florida, all right, the county where both me and Carrie are, and the counties surrounding us have been more proactive. And interestingly, all right, the governor has allowed us most of the time to be more proactive and be more restrictive. Now, he stopped doing that a month ago and, you know, just sort of threw everything open. And he's done things like, he said to the Tampa county that includes Tampa, Florida, we will not give you $400,000 in state funding unless you open your schools now. So
He
he's
did the
done some
same
of
for
that.
West Palm. He did that for West Palm
Well,
also.
yeah, it wasn't now. In West Palm, it was like in 2 or 3 weeks. But yes, he
Right.
did the same pressure. But Broward, where we are, and Miami-Dade didn't have quite the same pressure. And even though we have, you know, our record is not good because we have young people going out to bars. And stuff like that.
We see that on the news here.
Yeah.
You guys are all having just galleons of good times.
So
The
we
big
had
parties.
the question for Canadians. I
Yes.
just was reading yesterday in a newspaper, Canadian Thanksgiving, which was a few weeks ago. Can we learn something about what happened then? Are you seeing more cases, more hospitalizations because people decided, well, it's Thanksgiving, we have to get together?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, a little bit, but a lot of around here anyways, they're contributed to a lot of the young people having parties, big ones, huge ones. And they're all being busted, and just one in you know, about 20 minutes away from me on the weekend, last weekend, was busted. It was a huge Airbnb party, and even the statistics a few months ago were saying that most of everyone who's proven to be COVID, have COVID, tested positive, is they're all in their 20s. So we don't know.
Jenny, I was wondering where you are. Are you in Canada or in the States?
Yeah, I'm in Canada. I'm in BC also.
Oh,
But I am in northern BC, so I'm
okay.
very remote.
Yeah.
And where we are, in our whole region, which is hundreds of square miles, we have 2 cases of COVID, and that's it.
Oh,
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's
you guys.
really, we are isolated just because of our normal lifestyle, so it's really a non-issue up here.
Yeah.
But
So-
you can compare that to,
I'm really out of the zone in the things that you're talking about.
but if you compare that to, all right, America's least populated states, we're talking Alaska, North
Right.
Dakota, they are having problems, even in these remote areas. So I don't know what BC is doing and whether the rules that BC has has come out with affect the village where you are. But if you compare it to sparsely populated states in the United States, these rural areas that thought they were immune are finding out over the last 3 weeks, especially, that they're not.
Well, it's definitely the central leadership and listening to the
Yes.
scientists is the key message. Yeah.
BC, we're actually quite fortunate and quite renowned in Canada for having one of the best health ministers.
Mhm.
And she got ahead of it all when COVID first broke out and put a lot of action in place right at the beginning.
Mhm.
And I think that's what's really been our salvation.
Yeah, BC did definitely crack down. Like, I'm in Alberta, and our city and our province has had record numbers. Like lately, we've had explosive numbers, higher than when the pandemic first started. And they're attributing it to, like, one wedding had 49 positive cases out of 63 attendants. The schools, there's, I don't know, 300 or 400 active cases in our schools. Like, it's really serious here. I don't know, to me, I'm not working, as some of you know, but like, my daughter goes to school, thank God there's no cases there. But they even say if there is, they're not going to shut schools down. So I'm not sure like how they're going to balance that, especially when the numbers here are rising so tremendously.
Is there a difference between Alberta and BC in terms of just the people's attitude? I mean, the only thing I know about, you know, Calgary is the Stampede. So are these like cowboys, you know?
I don't know. Like, it's kind of difficult because like our health minister is using the word fatigue. Like, people are just so fatigued from the information overload. Like, my daughter, she doesn't even want to go into sports now because she has to wear a mask everywhere she goes. She's like, I don't want to wear a mask when I go to karate. I don't want to wear a mask and go and take another class. It's so much fatigue is happening. So I think people are becoming complacent.
I think that Dr. Bonnie Henry, who's not the health minister, she's the chief medical officer or something like that. She had this very calm approach, non-combative. So we're not even at the moment forced to wear masks. I mean, she highly recommends it, but I think she had a lot to do with it. She is amazing.
I mean, you need somebody at the helm that's calm. Like, I would not do well under that kind of pressure. No, but you also have to be realistic. Like, I was just in a store the other day, and this woman, and it's mandatory here, you have to wear a mask in every public place. And a woman came into the store and everyone like pounced on her. You need to have a mask on. Where's your mask? And, oh, I didn't bring one. Like, just this complacent attitude. So then they give her a mask and make her sanitize her hands. And she was just so lackadaisical about it and not really worried. I mean,
the fact is that she actually did what they told her to, which is very different from some, but yes. People do not comply. They go to the store with the intent purpose of not complying.
Like, why have that toxic like aura around you? Like, you're going like with such a vindictive approach. Like, why be so combative? Life's hard enough.
Yeah. It's
right?
to prove a point or ego or something internal or something personal. I'm sure that's going on. So,
but like you guys said, your governor isn't even pushing forth it. So, I mean, it's from the top down, right? I don't know. That's a hard one.
So one of the famous quotes from American independence is Patrick Henry, who said, "Give me liberty or give me death." And I think there are people here who would change it. It's now sort of, give me a very distorted sense of liberty, which is what they believe in. Oh, you can't tell me to wear a mask. Or give me, or maybe my family, or maybe my friends, or maybe a stranger that I don't even know, death. That was the way I'd rewrite that today. It is this distorted sense of liberty and freedom that used to mean, oh, I'm free to do anything as long as it doesn't affect somebody else. My freedom ends at my nose.
It's also the
But
individualism versus
Yes.
collectivism. Like
Yes.
the West is very individual. It's all about ourselves, whereas in the East, people are more collective and do what, you know, in groups, they listen to the government more and that sort of thing. That's a very blanket statement, but there's some
Cultural.
truth in it. Yeah, it's a cultural
Perception,
difference.
perception for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So are we going to get down to
Should we start?
Tony,
Anybody
Yeah,
else
I
have-
mean, my goodness, we have such a small group here after the
Yeah.
last time.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's
I
always
missed the last one.
valuable. I know.
So-
Key learnings from session 2, how to install plugins. I went through a pretty detailed video on how to download them from Audacity, where to store them, how to extract them from where they're stored, and then apply them. So enable and disable plugins right in your Audacity screen. So you don't have to look through a number of effects and plugins that you no longer need. Yes.
So I just wanted to say that I actually did find this, that was my key learning. And I looked at the timestamp and it was about 32.51 or something as you look at the video. So that was very, very useful because I still don't know how to do this properly, and I'll have to practice it, because when I got my new Audacity version, I couldn't get my ACX check anymore, and it was a huge thing to try and get it back. So that I thought was extremely useful. Thank you, Valerie.
Oh, you're welcome. And when I was first adding these plugins as well, like I was like, where do they get stored and how do you extract them? Like it's kind of like a bit of a learning curve to download and extract. The next point we talked about was the chain. So different ways and different sequences you use to mastering your files. And one of the biggest takeaways from that is when you do your noise reduction, if you have to do it last. That was one of the biggest takeaways from our large group last week. Hi, Glenna, nice to see you. Next one was low pass filter can be used to reduce loud breath marks. And I thought that this was a really valuable point. So instead of getting rid of all of your breaths, keep some of them in. We are human beings. We are reading a story out loud. Keep some of your breaths in. Now, not all of them, and don't remove all of them, but be selective. If it's, you know, during a dialogue back and forth between characters, or you're a really excited narrator because it's an exciting point in the story, then keep your breaths in because they actually add to the excitement of what you're reading.
I just wanted to go back to the although we didn't really say limiter, but I actually use the limiter almost like my exclusive mastering tool, because I saw that on one of the YouTube training videos. Yeah. Not only for the -3 dB, but the other one, the gain, I put the gain, in my case, fairly high because for some reason my microphone's gain is not proper. So I would have the gain at what I wanted, and at the same time, the dB. So it takes away the peaks. And it goes up, it amplifies the volume. And then usually it passes the ACX check right like that. There's not even a noise, even the noise floor is perfect. So I found really that extremely easy to do. And I hope it's the right way to do it, but that's what I've been doing.
Well, I think that's very interesting that you don't have a problem with the noise floor there, because, I mean, the limiter will also bring up the lows, and that would include the room sound.
Yeah, I don't know why that is the case, but that has worked for me very well. And then sometimes at the end, I still go back and check the noise floor, but for some reason that has worked.
So I'm just going to, can everyone see my screen here?
Yep.
I'll just show what Denny's talking about. So when you have your example here, this is one of my auditions, and this is straight wave file taken from, so I record in a Zoom H6 and then I bring it into Audacity. So if you go up to effect and you, oh, let's just check this first. So what I'll do is I'll go into analyze and I'll do the ACX check first. So we can see what the levels are. So here's just my raw file. I've not done anything to it. So
RMS is too low.
So my RMS is too low, and this is one thing I struggle with, but you see the number is only minus 26.7. So it's so close. So if I click OK on that and I select my file.
Go to the limiter.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So limiter,
So,
and then I leave the levels here, and this
in
is
my case, my level, the input gain at the top for me is actually quite high, because for some reason my you know, as I said, the gain isn't high enough. But at the same time, it does the minus dB. So let's see what happens when you do that.
So if I select this, and then I go back into my analyze. So it brings my peak closer to 3, down a couple notches, and
So
it does
that
affect
means,
my RMS level, but not enough.
so that means, you know, the top one, the one that gained, try that again and put that up at a 2, or just do a Control R to repeat it and see what happens.
I do the math. I just kind of do the math, and you count down backwards. It's got to be at 23 or under. And you know, whatever I'm at, I'm usually at about a 25, 26, somewhere around there. Just do the math, and then I fool around with it, then normalize, of course. But I always use limiter, always.
Yeah, I always use limiter as well. Let's just try this again and see what happens.
Yeah, so you've got one, your RMS is a bit higher now, so let's see if it passes this time.
And you do have to be careful, because if you use limiter and you're using like 6.00 or above, you know, your voice does start to change.
Well, this
I've
is the thing.
experienced that.
So, and let's just get into this RMS a little bit. Because my question is, RMS is your actual volume that's going through the microphone, correct?
Sort of.
So if I'm like on 26 in my raw file and I want to be, you know, at the lowest number of 23, how do I increase the volume instead of compressing my file?
Well, I think that has to do with, I mean, I don't know if Audacity has plugins for that, but, you know, I have an external hardware. So I use a preamp, and I've already got my numbers sort of tweaked, my gain and you know, noise gate and everything like that already pre-done, but it is in there. I can't change it afterwards. But once you have my numbers preset, it's fine. But when you go in and raise your RMS, everything raises. But I know some people thought for a while, oh, I'll just amplify it first. But as we know, amplify also raises the noise floor and everything else. So I've heard people go in and, you know, they equalize, they will do a high pass filter. They have all their little FX chain if what's going through the microphone isn't good enough. So, you know, it all depends on people's setup and where they are, what's going in.
Right.
But I don't know specifically, unless anybody else does, how to raise your RMS other than and not raise your noise floor at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, my noise floor, like in that example, is really consistent. Like I sit around minus 70, minus 80 even.
Me too.
So I'm not concerned with that. Even coming up to 60 would still be fine. But it's just, you know, if I could just get those couple of things, I'd be solid coming through my microphone without having to apply too many
Well, I have a very good friend, my mentor, who taught me all about audio. He used to own a studio and do all this stuff. And he's the one who taught me about all this stuff. And he told me when mastering, well, he told us what we do in mastering isn't really mastering, but it's called mastering. But anyways, he told me that you're always probably going to have to master in some way or another. I mean, it's kind of rare that you can get it unless you're in a really professional studio. But even a professional studio, they have all their limits all set and they have all the equipment. So he said that you're always going to end up having to do something, you know. So I don't know if that's, I believe
So
him.
for me, I only have to do like that one thing.
Yeah,
Just that one thing. I mean, it's
yeah,
pretty good.
I mean, that is golden. If you can get that, that's golden. I remember when I first started out, my limiter was at, you know, I had to put it in at like 5.40, and that was, you know, and a couple
we always
times
remember our first numbers.
It was horrible. And I was, you know, my RMS was coming in at like 29. You know, but then I treated my room. I, you know, checked out, I got another mic. I, you know, got we get all our stuff that we need that helps improve. Like in this situation, I think gear does help us. I mean, my first mic was a USB mic because that's what I saw on a tutorial of a narrator who suggested it. So I ran right out and got it, even though I was advised not to by my mentor. I thought I knew. So, and it put a buzz in my computer. So it does matter what we have, you know. So, but I think our room, how we treat our room and the space we're in is really, really important.
Vanessa, I just have a couple of questions for you. What is your chain, and, you know, in what order do you do things? But then also after that, could you please show the people who didn't see it how you treated your room, because it's really neat.
Okay, well, my FX chain is quite simple. It's always been the same. Well, first I record it all, then I go back and then I edit. And I edit, not proofread. I just edit. I make sure that I have nothing repeating, anything like that. So I do that. Then I go back and I master it.
So what is your mastering chain?
Yeah. So it is, first I go to limiter, number one. I do my limiter. After limiter, I do normalize, keeping my peak at minus 3.1. I keep it at. But I think somebody in the group a while ago mentioned they even go to minus 3.5 and even 4 for headroom. But I do 3.1, never had a problem with it. And then I go and I do noise reduction. And that's pretty much it.
Okay.
It's a simple chain. And I make sure, the thing is, sometimes when you do, some people don't, I don't know if they know, but I will do my whole mastering and I will listen to it after I've done my mastering, because once you master, every sound gets raised. So there's more clicks and pops that you couldn't hear before. You could hear them now. I didn't realize that when I first started out, and I went back and going, what the heck happened? I checked for all this, but as the sound level rose, so did your clicks, pops, sound noises, breaths that you don't want in. So I master first after I've edited, but I master before I proof listen. So, and then if there's a problem, and I say I completely miss something or a sentence or got a word completely wrong, I will record it at the end of it. Then I put on a little FX chain on that by itself. Sometimes you may see that it's too loud because it's just a little section that you're doing. So I then, after my FX chain, I amplify, I go to negative and I bring it down and I fit it back in. It's a pretty good, it works for me. You're asking me about my studio. It's just my closet. And I took half of my closet and I just, you know, all around, you know, everywhere, put in some treatment, and it helped me a great deal.
And the ceiling.
Yeah, the ceiling, I lowered my feeling. I was saying ceiling, sorry. Earlier I was saying that I felt that my sound wasn't dead enough. It sounded still too echoey. So what I did is I lowered my ceiling in my closet with just a blanket. And when I got the treatment here, I decided to put in a real ceiling, which was just some quarter round, because they have a little ledge on it. If you put them up against the wall with the little finishing nails, quarter round all the way around. And I put a teeny sheet of plywood, like that much. And it's kind of a floating ceiling, and it's really changed my noise floor completely. So it helps a lot. This stuff is expensive, by the way. Holy moly. This room is basically it's like $500 worth.
Wow.
Yeah. I want to keep it forever.
Thank you. That's fabulous.
Okay, so let's go back to our minutes here, see if we can get through another line or two. The next thing we discussed was low pass filter. Okay, and then we discussed different tips about mouth noises. This is always something we all struggle with. So the number one thing is drink a ton of water, constantly refreshing your mouth all the time. And then we went into the declicker and the de-esser. Somebody like me who has really strong S sounds, I do use a de-esser. And we went into punch, copy, punch, paste, which is another plugin. We did a good demo on the last session about plugins, again, on how to move them around and where to store them. And just as a further note to that, if you're storing your files in the cloud, make sure when you download your plugins, you store them wherever you're storing your files in the cloud. Because automatically what will happen when you download them is they'll store locally in whatever the program you're using, your Audacity show package contents area. That's where those will be stored. So if you house everything else in the cloud, move your plugins in the cloud so you always have them handy and backed up.
I use a program. I use another one. I use Backblaze. I pay a little bit every year, and well, my mentor, he's also a computer genius and security expert and stuff in computers. So he set me up to Backblaze. Is another program. It's basically like the cloud, but 10 times better. You have a security key. It's backed up for life. It is, even if the house burns down or whatever, you can always access it. It stores. It's unlimited storing.
How do you spell that?
Backblaze is just how it sounds. BACKBLAZE. It's terrific. I'll try and get some more information on it for next meeting or something, but it's a really great thing. And I have unlimited, like I'm storing, and it backs up my entire computer constantly as well.
I have too.
Yeah, it's really, really great. So my computer, all my files, everything is backed up constantly. And I can do it manually too, but it just does it for me automatically. So it's one less thing on my plate. And I think it cost me for the year, it cost me about $60, $70. And to me, that's worth it, not having to worry about the cloud or anything. It's real secure. It's real big time stuff. So it's good.
So I run two separate backups. So I have one that's kind of like my every day I use these files are work in progress. And that one does the syncing every evening. And then I have another kind of an archive backup. So it backs up everything that I have live that's already complete and live on Audible. I back those up into an archive that isn't as accessible on a daily basis. I could still retrieve information from it like a year or two from now, but it's more so I'm not paying exorbitant fees for storage that I need to access all the time. It's only for stuff that I want to archive. So everything last year, let's say, on your audiobook production or anything that's live that you don't need to have access to. That was a question though on one of our Facebook groups, who removes or deletes their old files, or do you keep everything all the time? And one person actually said, like, she's had authors come back to her 5 years later and say, I want to remaster this. I want to add a chapter to this book. I want to relaunch it. So I don't know how common that is, but it's definitely something to consider thinking about on storing these old audio files that you've already completed.
Well, this
Maybe.
is something that I've really seriously am looking into, and another reason why I got Backblaze, because if we think about it, there could be an extra little opportunity here for authors or right holders or something like that to be able to, like, who gets, when we upload the book, we have no rights to it, and it goes to ACX. So the rights holders don't actually have a file to their book. So when their 7 years is up, who do they have a file? So I got to thinking with data storage. And when I'm writing up a proposal or a little note, so when I do my next books contracts to offer a service, which is kind of like a storage service for the rights holder as well, to be able to, if they, because I'm holding on to all these books. This is space. This is data storage. People pay big bucks for that. So if I'm hanging on to these books, and like I said, I pay $60, $70 a year, and it's unlimited, and it can be there forever. It might be a good opportunity to suggest to them, listen, I can offer you this storage data. I can store this book for you if in 5, 10, 15 years, you would like to have this book as your own, you know, so it's a small fee, maybe. I haven't really put it all together, but I think there's some room there to maybe think about it. Well, because we are storing all this.
We are, yeah. Recording room tone. So I don't know whoever was here last time. Liz Porter was on. She's also a narrator. And she commented about doing a room tone for like 30 seconds at the beginning of your recording time. And then using that to splice in your punch, copy, punch, paste within your file. And
there's another thing you can do with room tone. You just record, like I just walked away from it and I recorded an hour or half an hour of it and just have it ready. So if they all of a sudden tell you your noise floor is too quiet, that's what happened to me throughout, I don't know why, then somebody suggested you put that as a second track, and then it will fix that problem. So it actually did fix the problem on that particular file.
They usually say your noise floor is too quiet when it's an unawkward quiet, where it's so quiet where it sounds unnatural. So good for you.
Yeah, that worked for me. Yeah.
In one class I was in, they were saying that you can take that 10 or 20 seconds of room tone that you have at the beginning, and I don't remember how they said you could do it, but there's some supposedly easy way of making that a whole track that's underneath your voice. And so that if you ever needed to bring up room tone, you just move it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's an easier way than what I did, is walking away from my booth and recording all that.
But beyond that, Denny, if you have a separate track of room tone that's underneath your voice, another, a separate track, and you have something, well, I need to add some room tone, then you can just move it up. You can just take a segment of it and move it up.
I believe that's done in noise reduction.
I'm just thinking that as well. So
yeah,
so noise reduction will do that automatically, as you say.
Well, yeah, it depends on what numbers you're punching in, because there's a sensitivity in noise reduction that we have to be careful with as well. And when we first get when you first get Audacity or something, they've got their default numbers, and I went in and I was told specifically to bring that down a lot of things. Let me see what mine is at right now.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, Nessie, because I was showing mine last time and somebody piped up and said mine was way too high. So
Yeah,
I
it was. That was
adjusted.
me.
Was
So
that you?
is it
Yeah.
the sensitivity that's too high?
Yeah, the sensitivity, I brought down my sensitivity too. So I think a lot of times it's at 17 or something.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's I
You
brought mine
don't
down to
you can
6.
bring your sensitivity down. It doesn't have to be. So you can, and the frequency smooth bands, I don't know much about that, but I do because I've played around with sensitivity and noise reduction. Plus my audio mentor, he told me about the noise reduction. Not to go have your noise reduction over 7 or 8, and ACX actually recommends that as well, because that's where we start getting the robot sound in our voice. It becomes
so this should be
unnatural.
at 8.
I can't see.
Yeah. Oh, you can't see.
Oh, sorry. Hang on.
I see. I zoomed in. I'm on my phone.
Oh, you're on your phone?
Yeah, because I don't want. I've been told that using Zoom on my computer can take up CPU and all that stuff when it comes to with my recording. So I'm just doing it on the phone. So you're at 12 and 6. 6 is good. Frequency smoothing bands, it's at 3. I think the default is 1. Did you move it to 3?
Probably.
I would keep that at 1.
Okay.
Until it's researched, until we know what that actually does.
And
what's the difference between reduce and residue?
Residue, I believe it has something to do with gosh, it's about frequencies, something along there. I can't quite remember it, but we definitely, a residue might be where you're actually bringing it up. We have to look into that.
Okay,
for sure.
I'll do some digging on this for.
So
yeah, me too.
Vanessa, sorry,
Yes.
that top one, should it be at 12?
No, it should be under 8.
Under 8. Okay.
6 is usually pretty good. It depends on your room, depends on your treatment, but it should definitely not be below, above 8, because that's when our voice, and ACX strongly recommends that if you're going to use noise reduction, because noise reduction is totally used all the time in lots of in studios and stuff, but it's how you use it. So people don't quite realize when you first get Audacity, the default is set at 17. That's
super
huge.
high.
Yeah. And so when I was first listening to my first book, I didn't know. My first book is out there in Audible, and they're not good reviews because I sound monotone. That's what it makes you sound, very monotone. And it was like, dang it all, but after I did some more digging and researching, and talking to my mentor, and ACX even says, yeah. So I keep mine at 6, and I keep my sensitivity at 6.
Sorry, Vanessa, there are three settings, okay? So the middle one is the one that should be at 6, the sensitivity?
I keep mine at 6.
And
but you can fool around with that. It's a really good idea for people to go in and just take 10-15 minutes and go and fool around and see if your ear can pick up, and then you can find your own. I keep mine at 6.
What Valerie has is noise reduction dB at 12, and then sensitivity at 6, and frequency at 1.
Right. Her dB should be under 8. That's the one that should be under 8.
Okay.
Your sensitivity will be more of a personal thing, which means depending on your room. So you can go in and fool with that, but I keep mine at 6.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about that? Okay, next we talked about alternatives to Audacity. Liz was on the call last week and she was talking about Reaper. She's found it very valuable, and at $60, it's not a huge cost associated with it. Again, that's personal choice. We had somebody on the session before who said, Audacity is very capable for mastering. The only thing it doesn't have that some of these other programs have is a really good like pre-roll or punch and roll. What's it called?
A really good D-click as well. It's not as good as Reaper and a lot of the other RXs and stuff out there. Yeah.
Does Reaper give you the ability to move the waveform out and get back something that you might have taken out? Because
yeah, it's non-destructive, I think. I'm pretty sure. I paid the $60. I'm learning it slowly. I don't want to learn it too fast because I want to really know what I'm doing before I take a contract and do a book.
Yeah.
So I'm taking my time at it, but yeah, it's non-destructive. So there's a lot you can do in it. It's just, it's overwhelming. You know, there's a lot.
There are two problems I have with Audacity after spending 45 years in radio. And one is that you don't see where the edit was. It disappears. And the other is if you want to, oh, wait a minute, you know, I took a little too much out there. Let me just move it over.
It's destructive.
Yeah, it's destructive.
But you can, if you learn how to manipulate it a little bit and you don't go too far ahead, you can, you know, undo that and bring it back. Yeah. But it does show me where my edits are, though. It does show me, you know, where I've clicked things in and clicked things out, or cut something in and cut something out. It shows me all that.
How do you do that, Ness?
Well, it just really just shows you in, you know, so when I record the whole thing. Sometimes I'll use punch and roll if I think it's right, but using punch and roll, you get rid of everything after that, right? So I record it all. I don't use a declicker, but I just sit there and talk. And sometimes, you know, a 15-minute chapter, when it's finished, it's going to be about 30 minutes to record it, maybe 45, depends on my mouth that day. Right. And then I go back and I edit. And when I edit, I am recording at the end, and then I'll put something in or I'll take something out. So as soon as you click on it, am I in the right, thinking the right same thing? As soon as I click in it, a line shows up and it shows me what I've taken out, what I've taken in. So maybe I've got something in the preferences that I filled with one.
I'd love to know what that is, because I don't see my old edit lines.
I'm going to make a note about that because I have not figured that out at all. And I would like to see the edit. So you have it actually noted in there?
Yeah. And I'm remembering something here, and my mentor is coming over this weekend. So I'll get him to find out what I've done in the preferences
or
here.
Or do a screenshot even so we can kind of see what your edit looks like.
Yeah. I got to learn how to do that on my computer.
Oh, come on.
I know.
And then we can at least see like how it shows up in your file. Why we record in mono versus stereo. One of the guys last session, he just said this so perfectly well. You can't distinguish your voice between stereo and mono when you only have one track of voice. So it doesn't make any use to do it in stereo.
I actually have a couple of comments there with what happened to me. I was doing a German-Spanish book, and I had a Spanish person doing the Spanish, and I did the German. And I put the microphone on stereo, and we recorded that way, and it seemed to work okay. So there's a case where you would do the stereo. And the other thing that's happened to me at least 3 times, I play back as one of the books I even sent into ACX, and they let me know, oh, some of your files are stereo, and I don't know how it happened. It just all of a sudden happened. So I would listen to it, and I would notice at the top, it actually had 2 lines of, when it played there at the very top, in the middle, just below Audacity, Cedar, Cage, or whatever, that when it played, the volume would, both of those lines would have different volumes showing. So what I had to do finally, also with the help of an audio engineer, I opened up another mono track right below it, and then I cut and pasted the entire thing in the mono track, and that took out the stereo and mono. So that's how I fixed it.
So, I was listening to this podcast, And in the podcast, they did something so interesting. And I don't know if they were playing mono versus stereo, but what they did to do voice effects, instead of changing their voice sound and inflection, they created a left-right speaker. Do you know what I mean? You guys know what I'm talking about? So
yeah, that it's got to have been done in stereo and then maybe put in the mono. I don't know how they could do that.
I don't know either, but you know what's interesting is, instead of having like this, you know, you're running out of your voice effects for your characters, I thought it was such a subtlety. So you only heard it in one ear. And I don't know if ACX would frown upon it or Audible, because it was kind of like a audio drama, but I'm going to do some digging into it because I think it will lend itself nicely to he said, she said character. What's your guys' thoughts on that?
As long as you know that ACX will reject the file if it's not a mono file, you know.
They won't reject it if it's not mono. They will only reject it if you have stereo and mono.
Yes,
a mixture.
exactly. Yeah.
But what is their ultimate file?
It doesn't matter if it's stereo or mono, as long as they meet the requirements.
Yeah, but I'm saying the thing that the consumer gets.
Oh.
They don't know, because it's an MP3.
Yeah.
So,
but I thought the ACX requirements say it has to be in a mono file.
They prefer mono, but it's not a requirement.
The only requirement is that you be uniform.
Yeah.
I would not do it solely in the left and right. I would do it as a balance. So
how it comes through is it's a 2 POV audiobook, male and female, and it's chapter by chapter, which is nice. So when the man is reading, and his voice is exactly like Donald Trump's voice. So it is very strange to listen to him. But when he's reading, and even if there's not a lot of women actually in the book itself, but when he's doing anybody's voice, it always heads to one side or the other. And I think it's awesome. Maybe that's just me, but I really like the dynamic, instead of having some crazy voice that may not be appropriate for X character.
Well, I'm a huge fan of audio drama. I love it. I'm very cinematic. I like sound effects. I like stuff, but I also love a nice clean listen of an audiobook too.
Right.
So I am looking into doing some audio drama, but I just haven't started yet, but I love it.
I know. So I thought I'd throw it out there. I can even send over the link to the book I'm listening to, so you guys can, or the podcast. It's just a really interesting way to tell a story and not have all these different inflections in your voice.
Right.
So I'm assuming,
I'd like to hear it.
Back to the stereo versus mono, I'm assuming that's what it is, recording in one versus the other. I tried to play around in Audacity a bit to see if I could figure it out, but not successful yet. Next thing we talked about was saving Audacity files, WAV versus MP3. Well, your WAV file is your editing file, and then your MP3 is what you export it to, and that's what ACX and other Audible interfaces require.
That was another huge key learning for me, because I have never done it. I do my editing in Audacity, and then I save it to MP3. So I've never done the WAV thing. So what is the advantage of, what's the danger of doing it in Audacity?
Okay, so I learned this the very, very hard way. So I had brought my WAV file in, because again, I record on a Zoom. So I brought my WAV file in and I edited, but I only edited part of my chapter because I was camping, and I get up early in the morning and I play around, and did that, saved it. And then all of a sudden, the next morning when I went back to continuing editing, none of the edits were there, and a lot of the file was missing. So it basically will your Audacity file will corrupt your master file, your original file, not your mastered, your original.
Does
So you
everybody else
must
do that?
export it as a WAV
To save.
or something to save it.
Wave to save.
WAV to
Can
save.
you just show up, show
Yeah.
of hands, are you using, with everybody, are you
Oh.
using WAV? Are you saving it as WAV? And, okay, so there's one, but Vanessa, oh, okay, Dave, so you're doing that as well. Vanessa?
I do. I always save as a export as a wave. Yep.
Okay, so yes, so that's a key learning for me. Oh, and yesterday, I mean, not yesterday, when I was watching the video from last time, you remember Ross? And Ross was saying that he had these sermons that he had to edit. And I bet you those sermons were in MP3, because I don't know why he couldn't edit if it was a WAV file.
Just depends on, yeah, I mean, I wish he was here. He was so
Yeah.
interesting.
Yes.
Such an interesting guy, but I mean, I'm assuming they would record it in some sort of a exterior
MP3.
recorder, right?
Yeah,
Which could be a wave,
that could be.
because they can be, and then the promo ideas. So we were talking kind of collectively, like, how do you guys get your promo codes out there for other people to listen to your books and give an actual honest review of something? So we got very little feedback back on that. All of our
I'm too
promo
embarrassed. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to.
We're so shy, yet our voices are so public.
Yeah.
I know.
I've sent them out to a couple of family members and stuff like that, but that's when we were getting paid for them too. But I haven't started on my whole promotional marketing campaign because I'm so busy working. But I need to get I've bought the rights to my name and my website and everything like that, but I just haven't gotten on it yet. And I think that's going to be a huge difference. Like, as you know, Val, and some people know, I go by a pseudonym on Facebook as well. I made myself I'm Ava Eames on Facebook, because I wanted to have something professional. And so when I do use Facebook for promoting and stuff, I'll start putting them on there when I do my new books under my pseudonym name. And then I'm eventually going to have a website, and I think that's going to be really handy, because it makes it much easier to get it out there. Just send somebody a link, and even share, you'll have them there as well. Maybe that could be a storage option or something as well. But yeah, I'm too embarrassed yet. I'm not ready.
In terms of,
somebody else mentioned to launch your book on LinkedIn. Does anybody do book launch? Any announcement? Nessa, you're still too shy. I don't announce anything to anybody.
Although
I want my book to sell.
I'm all set up in LinkedIn, but I didn't know that you could do that.
Well, and so I thought that was interesting. So I went into LinkedIn and looked up voiceover groups on there, and there is a ton of them. Casting groups, voiceover group, commercials. I think they even have like the sentient ones where you could do like telephone, you're on hold recording. So I requested to join all these groups. There's probably like 5 of them with like 1,000 members, 1,500 members, but they're not active. So I don't know if it maybe was a good idea, or they were active at one time and now they're not. I'm not really sure.
And usually they're just trying to sell their training to you or something like that. It's not really like this group where you truly are,
learning,
sharing and learning.
Yeah. So if I get any feedback from them, I'll be sure to share it, but it was kind of not as valuable as I was hoping it would be. And in my group, like in my connections, I've never seen anybody launch anything on LinkedIn. I don't know if anybody else has, but I didn't really see how that platform would be useful, but maybe for some people it is. Next is keywords on ACX. So one of the members last week talked about just really using good keywords when you put your samples up on ACX, because two of the people from last session both got gigs from their keywords in their actual sample description. So that was kind of valuable. One thing we talked about doing was really updating our profiles on there. I'm at fault because I did not do that.
I also noticed samples, when you put in a new sample, it kind of gets listened. It's almost like in Facebook, when you comment on a feed, it goes right up to the bottom. Like you see it again over and over and over again. And I noticed when I first put on samples, boom, 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 I was getting hits from right holders, right? And then for a long time, there was nothing. And, a couple months later, I decided to update a sample. I put it on and boom, boom, boom. It's like it's got
noticeable.
Right on the, yeah, it gets right on the front list or something.
That's interesting.
Like refreshed.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had another experience with that when I was still advertising myself for, like nothing, $50 or something like that. I would get all these scammers looking for you. And
are they Italians?
Books. And Italian, of course. And now that I've got $100 to $200 as my PFH, it doesn't even help to refresh my samples. I'm not getting any invitations based on that.
I'm brand new to all of this, so I haven't even started. That's why I'm learning now from all y'all, so that I can have a smooth transition into doing it, hopefully.
Good.
Oh, good.
I get the impression she's not Canadian.
No. I'm from Texas, but I live in Arkansas.
Okay.
I love it.
I know when they ask about any attributes, do you have any dialects or do you have any other languages? Like, I got nothing. Here we got German, Spanish,
this is it.
Southern drawl.
This is it. And I'm thinking maybe that left and right thing you were talking about, because I have no characters. I have nothing. My kids are adults and my grandkids don't live near me. So I don't have anybody to read to and make all those things to anymore.
It's so hard too. Like when you first, I know David and I have talked quite a bit, and I think like having that left or right option might assist with the people who are a little more shy on characters or maybe not as well versed on an inflection. There's one guy that I really like. I sent you the link, David, to him. And he just does these like little teeny tiny things just to get a brand new voice. He does it so smoothly. I'll send it in the next show notes, but he can give you like just the slightest tip on this brand new voice without actually changing the octave in your voice, so you're not forcing something that isn't natural.
But with my luck, I would forget which voice I used on what book, and it wouldn't do me any good.
Oh, well, there's systems in place. Like I just use my voice note on my phone, and I'm like, this is the voice of David. This is the voice of blah, blah, blah. And then I record a little
sample so you remember.
Yeah, just so I remember. And then you can kind of get your thought process back into that character.
I gotta do that. I end up just writing down. I just end up going back into the chapter of the book I did 5 books ago. It's horrible.
Like
I can do that, Val.
Yeah, like here, if I can show you. Let's see.
But while you're looking, I just wanted to say to Glenna that when I first started, Glenna, I worked for 2 years for LibriVox, which is a volunteer.
That's what I'm trying to get into.
Good, because honestly, I had no idea what to do. So I really learned a lot by just doing the volunteer stuff to start off with.
Yeah, my coach has told me about them and I've signed up with them. So
good.
How do you spell that? LibriVox.
And you can just do a part of a book or
I did
the whole book or whatever. You don't have to do it all.
I did so many projects there. It was great. So
this is what I do.
Great idea.
Well, Val, look at your file management. That's fantastic.
Wow.
Isn't this fun? So,
That's
and you know what else I do is so if I come upon a name that I don't know, And authors just love this. So what I do is I say, is this how I pronounce this name? Take 1, Laura Lee. Take 2, Laura Lai. Take 3. And then I send them the actual voice note in my voice. And they respond like, it's like fireworks going off, like, oh my God, this is so great. No, it's take 1, do it this way. And they just like to hear your
That's
voice.
great.
That's a great idea.
Oh,
That's
thanks.
fantastic.
Can you play one back for us?
Oh, sure. So I'll do this one. So this is trying to get the name. Her name was Helene Hermologou. Anyway, so here's what I said. Hi, Rana, it's Valerie. I just wanted to ask you about Helene's pronunciation of her name. So I would like to pronounce it, take 1, Helene Hermologou. Or is it take 2, Helena Hermologou? And also, I could barely make it through page 201. Oh yeah, this is, she writes, her story is a true story, and there was a little kid in the story that was injured by somebody, and I could hardly make it through reading the chapter. So anyways, that was the second part. But that's what I send to them, like,
Great.
Hi, Rana, it's Valerie. I just wanted to confirm the pronunciation of your sister's name. I have been pronouncing it Lorelei, but is it actually Lorelei? If you can let me know. So take 1, Lorelei, and take 2, Lorelei. Thank you, Rana. So guess what it was?
Lorelei.
Laura Lee.
Laura Lee.
Laura Lee.
Oh my
Lee.
goodness. Yeah.
Option 3. Laura.
Yeah.
How are
That's
you
great.
sending this to them?
So I, on my phone,
Yeah. But I mean, you're using.
I just email it.
But
So you
so
can
you're
record
getting
it.
you're getting a separate email address from the author.
Oh, you have to.
Okay.
I
It's
think
just, you can run everything through ACX, David, but it's a bit cumbersome because you have to get the email through your system and then log into ACX once you have a notification, right?
Right. I understand that, but I didn't think that you could also send a
Yeah, I
audio
mean,
file through ACX that way.
no, I don't send it through ACX. I
Right,
just
but
send
I'm
it through.
saying I don't think we even have the capability of doing that.
I don't think you can even attach through there.
No.
Right, exactly. So all right, great.
Yeah, so that's
Because
how
I'm doing something that has a lot of biblical references, and I've got to find, are you pronouncing
First
Leah or
Corinthians.
Leah? Are the same thing? Is it? I'm just starting to make notes about. Is it Laban or Laban?
Yeah.
And these, these
Yeah, I would
Bible
just do up a
stories.
file and
Yeah.
do your takes and send it to your rights holder.
Yeah,
And you know
great.
what? Some of that is so by preference. So for
Yeah.
example, Barbie in last session, she was talking about how you say things in certain areas, like where you live.
Yeah.
Obviously, Glenna would say things a lot different than me. But what was interesting too is there was 2 people that reached out to me saying they never heard back from their group. I'll leave everything anonymous for right now. And so these 2 people wanted somebody to listen to their chapter. And I wanted somebody to listen to my chapter, and I never heard back from my group either. So these 2 gentlemen and I exchanged files. What was interesting is one of them came back to me and said, your pronunciation of about and a few other very Canadian words, he commented that I pronounced them incorrectly. And then he followed up and said, unless this is the Canadian way. And then I respond, and then so I asked for feedback on like my performance and my narration skills. And he was like, it was like totally great, but the few key things irritated him about my pronunciation or threw him off a little bit. So for David's perspective, I would reach out to the rights holder and I would lean on them for their direction. Because for me saying Lorelei 4,000 times through the story and getting like from chapters 20 to chapters 53, I had to go back through and change the name. It was a huge learning curve.
Did you see one person on ACX was actually asking that question? The rights holder got back when the book was finished, and
I
all
saw
these
that.
names were pronounced wrong. That is a nightmare.
So,
Yeah, I
you
saw
know, at first, Rana, the lady who I read her story, she said, if it's too much of a hassle, leave it. And her name is spelled R-O-N-A. So I actually thought her name was Rona.
Like the hardware
Like
store.
the store, right? So I did the first 50 minutes and she loved it. And then like a few days later, she came back to me and said, actually, like my family commented that you didn't pronounce my name correctly. She says, if it's too hard to change it, like we'll leave it. I'm like, it's your name. Like you're the author. Like I have to pronounce your name right. So then I sent her an email, like actual, like typed out email. Well, is it like Rona, like the store, or is it like R-U-N-A? Then she responded saying, no, it's like Rana, like Donna.
Yeah,
like,
rhyming
it was just
works.
so
Rhyming
difficult.
helps. Yeah.
So then I thought, I'm just going to do these voice notes. Then she can say, take one, because I've pronounced it and I'm guessing on how she thinks her pronunciation is going to come through in an actual written message. It was so valuable.
Yeah.
So yeah, just.
I had someone, I mispronounced something and they were so frustrated with how long ACX was taking to approve things that he said, I'm going to let it go because I've been waiting too long. I thought that was really weird. It was like, but it's mispronounced. It'll just take me, 10 minutes
Maybe he didn't know how to use the interface or something to like send it back to you for.
No, he knew how to use the interface. He just was so frustrated with ACX at that point that, all right, fine. Well, okay, I can do it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know, like, and I think too, based on these zones and these areas where we live, it's how culturally we pronounce something versus another area.
Yeah, Vanessa's already said oot and zed, so yeah.
It's exactly right.
But like, interestingly, not every time.
Well, I'm half British as well, and Scottish, but so my pronunciation is a whole mishmash of British, Scottish, Irish. I'm a good old Canadian gal to me. That's what I call myself because I'm a whole mishmash of everything. But I like Z better than I do Z sometimes. It's funner to say.
Yeah. It is funner to say.
I was born in Holland, grew up in South Africa, and only learned Canadian English when I came here. Now, I'm sure you can still hear an accent, but I don't have a typical South African accent anymore. And it's really hard to tell what it is.
It's beautiful. I love it. I keep listening to it, so it's great.
Oh, I agree. I think it's so nice that you just have like speaking German as a your niche is
Afrikaans. But I wanted to go back to the email. I actually make a spreadsheet of all the contacts that I've had so far and put their emails and websites or whatever, because you get a lot of repeat customers. You do maybe a series of books or they like you, they invite you again. So I like to go back to that spreadsheet and say, oh, here's that guy's email. I can now contact him again. And especially to get the transcript, the manuscript is something you usually have to go through emails, but it's good to have the emails.
You guys actually have coaches, which is awesome. And like, where did you find them? How much do you pay them? How often do you go? Does anybody want to share a bit of coaching story with me or with everybody?
My coach is just a voiceover coach, but he said that my voice lends better, he thinks, to the audio books and narration and things like that. So, and he's really good. He's been doing stuff for years, but he's cheap.
And so what kinds of things does he get you to do, Glenna?
Well, like whenever we're practicing, he'll pull up a script on one of those free script sites. And, you know, we'll just take it and I'll read it without anything at first. And then he just tells me, okay, well, maybe you need a little bit of this here, or, you know, you need to try to make it through this sentence. That I seem to have a lot of trouble with my breathing and getting through a sentence or through a paragraph or something without so many breaths. But,
So
you know,
Glenna,
so we
are
just
you
go
doing,
through.
Glenna, are you doing this by Zoom?
Yes. No, I lied. I'm sorry. Skype. Skype.
Okay, so a similar scenario.
Yeah, same thing to me, but yeah. So
I have to admit with great shame that I have never had any coaching. I've just learned through watching all these, and I don't know, you learn, your phrasing gets better, your breathing gets better. I mean, I know I should buy a really expensive microphone and get a very expensive coaching if I'm really serious about this. But I haven't. I'm still.
If you're getting paid to do it the way you're doing it, I wouldn't change.
I'm still using a USB mic, to my shame as well. So
me too. That's what I was
any
told to
feedback.
get.
Pardon?
You don't have any feedback or anything, noise?
Not
digital?
that I can hear,
Me
but
either.
you know, I'm really interested in our little group. Maybe we can determine that. That would be fabulous.
I have a really good ear for that.
I'm scared to buy a mic if I buy the wrong one, you know, so I'm sort of
Well, I've bought a few, so we'll chat.
okay. Okay, good.
I've got a problem.
So nobody else has coaches then, is that right?
I've gone to a lot of classes, and the problem is with COVID, they stopped having classes. Now I know that there are classes. I mean, I see on Facebook that, you know, some people that I've had classes with are doing Zoom classes. I just haven't done them, which I should have. But
And you know, I was
I'm
gonna,
also a member of the union, SAG-AFTRA.
Oh,
and
you are? You're
SAG-AFTRA
in SAG-AFTRA?
would have classes down here that were really valuable, but you know, they just stopped doing them.
oh man.
How much do classes generally cost?
If it was through the union, they didn't cost anything.
Huh.
Other ones weren't terribly expensive.
There was one lady in the last group who said she was paying $260 and it was like 6 classes.
Yeah, that was Barbie, right?
Reasonable. That sounded quite reasonable. Yeah.
But who is that? Paul, what's his name, from New York? You know, he has all these classes that he opens up to anybody. Paul Liberti. I mean, I had a class with him. He's really good. We didn't get along too well, but he's really good. Well, I mean, he wouldn't accept how I said my name. Everyone else was getting to read scripts, and he'd stop me at my name at the slate.
Oh man.
Come on, give us your name, Dave. How do you say it?
All right, so this is my professional name. He finally liked it when I put my hand over my chest to show I was doing it from my heart, but you know, it's Dave Arlington. I mean, he has this whole thing about slating, and
I don't think
really
I
good,
even
though.
know what you said.
He's really good, but the class, you know, I'd still do one of his online classes, and they're on Facebook on the ACX. He's on there, or else you can join him in particular. But I think a lot of these people are doing online classes. I just don't know how to find the right one.
And of course, ACX University, they're running right now, aren't they? And you can just listen to that, and even they record the videos and so on. But another name that comes up is Sean Pratt or Sean something.
Yeah, I took a class with him too. he's an interesting guy. He does an incredible number of books. He does it in a very assembly line manner. He does not pre-read his books.
Wow.
He does it all sight reading. And if you ask me, when you listen to some of his books, it sounds like he's sight reading. But who am I to criticize someone who's does an incredible business? But, you know, he has the people who does the, you know, he farms out the mastering, he farms out the editing, he farms everything out because he has so much business and he doesn't pre-read.
Well,
Wow.
I would prefer to have a woman coach, of course, because I'm a woman. So that's for sure.
So, well, I think a coach is probably valuable. And I think it'd be interesting to see, like, you know, like we all want to have some critical feedback on, you know, our overall performance. And maybe from a coach, we feel like, you know, we might be attacked, or maybe we don't say our names properly, things like that.
Well,
But I think it would be interesting to get,
a coach instead of a class.
right.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think too, there's a different relationship between a class and a one-on-one coach. I think the overall atmosphere would be considerably different depending on how you want to perform, right? What kind of pressure?
You could probably set up a Facebook page. I know, because I'm basically voiceovers, what got me in that I'm trying to do. I finally got a job doing that. But and then but the guy that my coach, he has a Facebook page that's called Rate My Voiceover. And you can upload your sample of whatever, and anybody on that site, on that group, can listen to it and give you feedback.
Oh, that's interesting.
So maybe you could do something like that with audiobook.
So what kind of voiceover? Oh, sorry, Jenny.
The danger with getting lots of people's opinions is you don't know whose opinion is true. Like, you'll get this wide range of conflicting opinions. And,
that's true. And you just take it with a grain of salt, like you do anything, until, you know, unless there's somebody on there that you know and trust their opinion after, you know, talking to them a while.
And I think that's, like, I go back to the two people that gave their feedback on my chapters. The one was so about how I said about, and the other one gave me like performance and, you know, maybe have more inflection here and maybe try it this way. Like, it was more tangible. Like, I can't change the way I say about, but I could definitely enhance some inflection here and there to, you know, maybe be more in line with the narration portion. And it wasn't even about so much as like my character sounds. It was really about me as a performer, which I valued, instead of trying to figure out how to change pronunciations from my culture. So I think if you go on to Rate My Voiceover, you're going to get like a whole mixed bag of, maybe they just don't like your voice sound.
I haven't had that so far.
Right? Like,
surprisingly.
that's what's interesting. Like, people are going to pick you because of your voice sound to narrate their project. Maybe they'll pick you because of your acting on the back end skills as well. But I don't know, like,
that's talking about the big R, you know, rejection, you know.
Oh, I thrive on rejection.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, I'm okay on it. I believe failure is a success in a certain way, you know, it really is. But man, when you spend an entire afternoon working on an audition that you were invited to audition because they thought they liked your voice. So you go in and it looks like a good title, you're psyched about it, you do the audition, but you know, you put everything you got into it, a whole afternoon maybe, you know, in blood, sweat and tears sometimes, you know, to get it right. And then you send it in and within, you know, 20, 30 minutes, it's like, oh, sorry, we picked someone else. It's tough. It's tough, man. It's like, oh, and that to me with coaching, one of the reasons why I decided maybe I might look into some coaching, and I'm thinking of Emily Lawrence because she's got a really good rate. And I've been into a couple of her Zoom meetings, and she's got a lot of information. anyways, one of the reasons why I was thinking of doing that was kind of for validation as well from a professional. You know, do I have the sound for this? Am I doing okay? You know, am I just, you know, I basically want a kind of a Simon Cowell, you know, to tell me, you know, you shouldn't be in this business, you know, and, you know, sort of thing, just to, you know, help me know that, because I'm fairly new. I'm only in this a year, and have some background in theater, but not a lot. I'm a mom at home, and I'm a very creative type, and I'm an artist and everything. And but who knows, you know, and that's why I love the fact that we have these groups that we will be able to say, yeah, that sounds great. And I'm hoping for real, honest, raw, authentic, constructive criticism, you know, not bashing or anything, but, you know, I mean, I think we're all kind of pretty nice people here, so we could get by. So I think it's going to really help, I think, just with validation.
Well,
you
I'm
know?
hoping y'all can help me.
And I think we all are looking to this group for some validation and just some, you know, some companionship in this solo industry. Hi, Pamela. Nice to see you.
Hi, Pamela. We'd like to hear from you.
Hi. I'm actually very, very new at this. I've only been trying to do this for about 6 months. Sorry about my video. It's kind of dark in here. I need better lighting, but I've only been doing this about 6 months. I haven't gotten any work, and I do have a full-time job that I work about 4 12-hour days. So
You're busy.
I'm very busy. And I probably haven't been, to be honest with myself, put as much effort into this as I should and would like to. So I'm definitely looking for, you know, like you guys were saying, a group that, you know, can chat with, talk with, get ideas, bounce stuff off, positivity, you know, that can just help me grow and navigate and learn as much as I can. So
I'm going to tell you right now.
Been doing it 2 months.
Wow. Well,
I like talking with you.
Well, I think it's great, and welcome. Nice to see your face here.
Thank you.
I'll just share something that one of the members sent to me that I think is very valuable, since we're talking about looking for feedback. We're talking about like is our voice suit this genre? Should we be exploring other avenues? So this person sent this note to me, and I want to share it because I think it was very valuable. From their own voice, a coach, he said this to me. So let me leave you with a story about a very successful narrator who taught a class I attended here in South Florida. She taught us that the market will decide what your niche is. She said she had no idea that her voice and delivery were ideal for young adult novels with quirky characters, but she is in great demand for those kind of jobs. If she had kept auditioning for romances or history or some other genre, she would not have been having such success. So one thing to keep in mind as all of us review our colleagues could be to envision what niche might be the best fit for what we were hearing from our fellow narrators. So this kind of lends us into that passage I sent out. And those of you who want to narrate it, you're welcome to take the floor and share your narration. Those of you who want to listen and give feedback, let's keep it constructive. Let's keep it positive, and let's just lean on each other a little bit, and then we can provide feedback. So if anyone's interested and would like to take the floor, let's do The Zoo Story by Edward Albee. Any takers?
I can't cold read.
Come on.
As soon as I can get it up, I will.
Okay, go ahead, Glenna, whenever you're ready.
Oh, I think Jenny was ready.
Jenny? All right, let's hear you.
Shall I go first, or is someone else dying to go first?
You go first, Jenny. Let's have a listen.
Okay. I'm a little bit nervous, so if I stumble, please forgive me.
We'll forgive you.
All right. The story of Jerry and the dog. What I'm going to tell you has something to do with how sometimes it's necessary to go a long distance out of the way in order to come back a short distance correctly. Or maybe I only think that it has something to do with that. But it's why I went to the zoo today, and why I walked north, or northerly rather, till I came here. All right. The dog, I think I told you, is a black monster of a beast. An oversized head, tiny, tiny ears and eyes. Bloodshot eyes. Infected, maybe. And body, you can see the ribs through the skin. The dog is black, all black. All black except for the bloodshot eyes. And yes, and an open sore on its right forepaw. That's red too. And oh yes, the poor monster, and I do believe it's an old dog.
I like your pacing, clear enunciation. I can hear everything. Your voice doesn't drop off at the end. There was some drama, and no, it's good. I enjoyed it.
I thought it was fantastic. The pacing was wonderful. Even in between sentences, it gave us time to take in everything. The tone of the voice, it was, yeah, there was some drama. There was some emotion. I loved it. I thought it was great.
I think it was very emotional, a bit brooding, like mystery surrounding the story. I liked how you kind of had a little bit of your personality come through, and how you're like, or, and kind of maybe, like how we're very inquisitive in it. Definitely good. I like the sound of your voice as well.
Thank you.
Such a nice voice.
Thank you. It's funny how, you know, when you hear your voice, it's different than the recording. And then sometimes when I'm listening to it, I'm like different on different days. And I'm like, oh, my voice is just so weird and different.
And I think, you know, I think you were the one that was commenting last session too about like editing your breaths out and really like making sure every little thing is perfect. Like some of that only
well, for me, it's the moist mouth.
Moist mouth.
I get so much of that.
Me too.
Just keep it refreshed with water. Does anybody else want to read? David?
Sure, I had such a different take on it than Jenny. I mean, I don't know if it's a good take, but it's different, okay?
Okay, we're ready.
All right, the story of Jerry and the dog. What I'm going to tell you has something to do with how sometimes it's necessary to go a long distance out of the way in order to come back a short distance correctly. Or maybe I only think that it has something to do with that. But it's why I went to the zoo today, and why I walked north, well, northerly rather, until I came here. All right, the dog. I think I told you the dog is a black monster of a beast, an oversized head, tiny, tiny ears, and eyes, bloodshot, infected maybe, and a body, you can see the ribs through the skin. The dog is black, all black except for the bloodshot eyes, and yes, an open sore on its right forepaw. That is red too. And oh yes, the poor monster, and I do believe it's an old dog.
I really like that, David. That was That was really good. And definitely such a different take than Jenny, where Jenny, you had more of a almost a darker mystery, evil dog that's hunting you sort of thing. Whereas David, I got more of a just this poor dog I saw, sort of take. It's so
He was so much more chipper about it. I liked it. It was just a
Yeah.
whole different mood.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like, I felt like, oh, I want to be conversational and I
Yeah.
really want to tell you about this dog.
Right.
And Jenny was more like, let me tell you about this dog.
Yeah.
It's really
More like pensive.
fascinating dog. Let me tell you about it. And so one was slow and one was fast and one was very assured and the other was very flighty and breathy. And I have no idea what Albie wants, but all right.
Yeah, that was really interesting to hear the different takes on it. Like who'd have thought, that's amazing. Because the different takes on it are going to definitely change the whole narrative, like how the story comes across. So really interesting.
Yeah. And David, like the way that so I've listened to some of David's work, to be honest. So listening to you read right now took me right back to I Know Your Voice. Your voice to me is so conversational. I think it has a weight to it that's trustworthy. Like you are very confident in what you're saying. I like the range, like you have a really deep range. I find my voice is so mid-range. I like your low, kind of grounding, almost a gravelly tone, although your voice isn't gravelly. I find me being more curious too about the dog from you. Whereas with Jenny kind of delivers this monologue about this bad, brooding story, mystery about this dog that you're kind of like looking forward to what's happening. Whereas with David, you kind of get what's going on. You're kind of like, you have your questions answered. Whereas with Jenny, it's more mysterious.
I also noticed that David uses his body a lot as he's, you're really into it. I can see you're gesticulating and that I noticed as well.
One of the things that was in one of my classes that, because I have such a hard time with characters, that they were talking about body language a lot. And it's like, all right, so one character, separate your legs, put your legs straight out and talk like this because that's somebody who's really open and talk. But somebody else, close yourself off. And so, I mean, I think that gestures and body language are crucial to me because otherwise I'm not going to put expression enough into it.
It's really true. When I'm in the booth and I'm recording, I do the exact same thing. If I'm doing a little kid, I huddle up. And if I do an old crotchety old woman, witch type thing, I get right into it because that's part of the fun and play as well. But it really does change your whole, reading. Mm-hmm. It's great.
And I saw a coach also say too, is just envision the person you're trying to portray. So like a big scary guy in a book, like envision a big scary cartoon monster or somebody like that, where you're like, that guy is he's just so mean, and be big and brilliant about it.
And even like voice notes.
Put it in your voice notes. And I do describe people that way. So when I do my voice, or my little voice note that I do, I always put like a little bit of a blurb in there. If it's somebody that this person always wears red. And so if you think about somebody who wears red, they're more vibrant or they talk a bit louder or little things like that. So you have your cues. Does anybody else want to read?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Since I'm new, I really need all the feedback.
All right, Glenna.
And mine, I think, is a little combo of the both of them, the way I was doing it.
Okay.
All right, the story of Jerry and the dog. What I am going to tell you has something to do with how sometimes it's necessary to go a long distance out of the way in order to come back a short distance correctly. Or maybe I only think it has something to do with that. But it's why I went to the zoo today and why I walked northerly, rather, until I came here. All right, the dog, I think I told you, is a black monster of a beast. An oversized head, tiny, tiny ears and eyes, bloodshot eyes. Infected, maybe. And body, you can see the ribs through the skin. The dog is black, all black. All black except for the bloodshot eyes. And yes, an open sore on its right forepaw. That's red too. And oh yes, the poor monster. I do believe it's an old dog.
That was
Yeah.
good. That was good. I'm gonna
Better when I read
suggest
it to myself.
well,
That was
when
good.
you started reading, you could sense after the first couple of sentences, you were starting to get into the story, and you were just starting to really play with it and open up with that. So that definitely, it progressed really, really well as you got into it more. And it's not an easy thing to do, but it was clear enough. I would work a little bit on clarity and that sometimes can just happen with us slowing down just a little bit, but that's really hard to do in a cold read too. I don't even know how y'all did it, because I can't do it.
But it was fascinating.
Yeah.
You hadn't captured in the beginning what you captured at the end.
Agreed.
By the end, you were so into it, and it was like, oh wow, this is really interesting.
Yeah.
So and I think that's a great lesson for all of us. It's like, we got to start strong, because that's the first impression. And wow.
Yeah, that's true.
I liked how
by the end it was just super.
I liked how you kind of brought a different tone yet again to the same piece. You were a lot more matter of fact, a lot less
Storytelling,
or I don't know, or moody or emotional. You were just matter of fact telling the story. It was like a third character telling the same story with a third different personality approach. And that was interesting. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I think that just slowing down a little bit, and the phrasing that's something you can work on to bring in a little more drama. But it was good, it was understandable, and what everyone said, all these positive comments. Well done, Glenna.
Well, thank you, because they haven't approved it yet, but a 30,000 word book, I'm assuming, that they want me to do. So I'm going, like I can read that first by itself and then go back and record it.
So that's about 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's about a 3 hour finished book, right?
Carrie, did you want to read too, Carrie?
Yeah, Carrie
Yes,
wants to read.
if I may, and I wanted to say I feel very fortunate to have the experience of all you guys first, and I feel very lucky that 3 of the 5 members of my buddy group are on this call. So even though it's a small group, I think I feel very lucky that I got the right buddies.
Yeah.
So, all right, and so I would like to read it.
Please go ahead. Floor is yours.
Thank you. All right. All right. The story of Jerry and the dog. What I'm going to tell you has something to do with how sometimes it's necessary to go a long distance out of the way in order to come back a short distance correctly. Or maybe I only think that it has something to do with that. But it's why I went to the zoo today and why I walked northerly rather, until I came here. All right, the dog, I think I told you, is a black monster of a beast, an oversized head, tiny, tiny ears and eyes, bloodshot eyes, infected maybe, and body you can see the ribs through the skin. The dog is black except for the bloodshot eyes. And yes, and an open sore on its right forepaw. That's red too. And oh yes, the poor monster, and I do believe it's an old dog.
Oh, my favorite.
I love the sound of your voice. It's got
Yes,
this
so
different
good.
thing.
Thank
I
you,
don't
thank
even know
you.
what it is.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you,
really
thank
nice,
you.
Carrie. I like that.
That
Yeah,
was
thank you.
really good, Carrie. Now I'm definitely not reading.
Oh, come on.
I'm not either. Nah.
You brought in a lot of drama there. That was great.
Good.
Well, thank you.
So are
Thank
you a
all.
newbie,
Thanks.
Carrie, or have you been at this a little while?
I'm just brand new.
Oh,
So, you know, as a kid, I used to read stories out loud, but, and that I'm very new. I did something on LibriVox
good.
under a pseudonym, and I think I'm going to do a couple more on LibriVox just to get, you know, my bearings and the experience with the software. But
Have you got a teaching background?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. But
Oh, there
yeah.
might be. Yeah, good.
Carrie, what did
No,
you say
well-
you were using that you've done? What box? Did you say?
LibriVox.
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 LibriVox. And they do all the books that are in the public domain. And oh, I probably did about 20 or 30 projects there under my own name. My goodness, I shouldn't have done that.
I know. If I would have
Shocking.
known about a pen name earlier on, I would have done that. I've done
Me
all
too.
of them under my name except like sexual content. I've done a couple of
Well,
like sexual
Right.
content books.
But your name
I-
sounds like a pen name.
Oh, good. Phew.
Yeah,
It does.
It
I think
does.
it's a good. Yeah, I
It's
think
a
it's
great
good.
name. It's like I can see it on a book cover.
Oh,
It
thank
is.
you.
Yeah.
You're so kind. I just recently found a site called, what did I send to you guys? Oh, the VOL training, and it's to read books for kids. So those of you who have little kids, there's all these apps now that they can listen to a book and then they can read a book and follow along with the words in a book.
Because
In
of
school?
COVID, of course. Yeah.
Well, even prior to, like any kids who kind of struggle with reading, they don't want to read. So this book is a
Sure.
voice reading the story, and then all the words are like highlighted so they can
Oh.
follow along.
That's neat.
Nice.
Anyway, so I started to look into this, and they have like full courses that you can take to learn how to story tell.
Wow.
And they have like all the way up to grade 12, actually, like full chapter books. They have history books, math, whatever. And they put you through this training cycle. So I've started the first training cycle, and it's I'm at like 42 minutes or something.
What's it
so
called again?
Yeah.
It's called VOL training. I'll send a link out for you.
Yeah.
And
Please.
it's really, it's all volunteer. It's all volunteer,
Mhm.
but you are matched up with coaches. And so, for example, in our story, I heard a couple of things that just made me note them because of this lecture I'm taking. So if you were to look at your story while I read through a couple of the lines on here, just to give you guys an idea. So it says, the dog, I think I told you, is a black monster of a beast, oversized head, tiny, tiny ears and eyes, bloodshot eyes, maybe infected. So if you were following along, I skipped a word and then I inversed 2 words.
Yep.
So a lot of us do that when we're reading. That's why we have, punch and roll. That's why we edit. So in this particular schooling, that is not allowed. So you cannot, another one that somebody said too is, and an open sore on its right forepaw. That is read too. The actual words are on its right forepaw. That's read too. So if you were to split that into that is, that would be an edit.
Wow.
So very, very detailed. So something that I thought would be good for me personally, and probably all of us, is just really to read the words that are there and don't make up your own way you want to pronounce it, whether it's a contraction before or after, and where the pauses lie. You have to respect the pauses that are actually typed in it.
Okay, well, I heard, well, Scott Brick, one of the best right out there, and a few others, they said one of parts of their success was due to not ignoring, but not honoring the punctuation all the time.
And I would agree with that too. Like, I think punctuation, especially when we have to breathe, is not always going to be at a comma or at a period.
The difference between what Valerie, that VOL, is that these books have to follow along exactly what's on the page.
Right.
Kids are learning. So
Yeah.
you can't throw in an O, because I often throw in a little O or yikes. I'm not yikes, but something to make it a little bit more dramatic. But you can't do that with these.
No, because kids are following along. People
They're
are
actually following every single word.
My bad.
So what might be interesting though is, like, I'm going to try it out to see how it goes. And plus it just makes you that, just that little notch better, because you're reading exactly what's written. Now, whether you take your punctuation and put it in a different spot, it just might be, it just polishes you up a little bit more, because once you get into this game of narration, you're actually reading ahead of what you're saying. Like, you become all about the words. And more about what you're seeing versus what you're actually reading.
And Vanessa, I wonder, some of these, very well known, like you said, one of the best, narrators and stuff out there. I wonder that, eventually you, as you're one of the best, very well known, you get more liberties than someone who's not necessarily as well known, and an author might be more strict on, I want you to do it how my book is, other than, oh my gosh, this is so and so, go ahead, do your thing.
Yeah, you're so right. There are definitely little perks and things that would come with that. I've listened to a few of his stuff and some other people, and I don't think they go off like it maybe as much as they're insinuating how much they go off. I think it's pretty to the T, but I mean, and a lot of authors, I've noticed, when you write, it doesn't sound so good when you narrate it out loud, right?
That's true.
Like,
yeah.
Oh, that doesn't come off right. It doesn't make any sense verbally. So that's when we would change it up a little bit, or find some flow in the sentence. And then we have run-on sentences that
like entire paragraphs. You're like, dude, where is your punctuation?
Yeah, I gotta breathe. But I think you're absolutely right. I think they have definitely have some perks there, that it's Scott Brick. Oh my God, you can do anything you want.
Right.
And I think too, it's the rights holder as well, whether it's the narrator or the rights holder. I think they, like us, have a personality that either they're going to be a little bit more flexible with the content, or very much more strict.
Yeah.
Because I've gone back to people and said, like, what about this? Or how do you want me to like narrate your, your grid here? Just however you think makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, how I think it makes sense, and what you got here, it's totally different. Right. So, I mean, I'm sure it's a bit of a personality thing. Some people are really strict, and like the one I just finished, he had imaginary instead of imaginarily, or maybe I have them backwards. And so I read what was there, but it should have been the other word. And so we kind of went back and forth a little bit, and was really collaborative on, if I would have said it how I thought it should have said, thought I should have read it, it would have been right. But how he had written it was incorrect. And so you collaborate that way. And if you do the little voice notes, I find them just so valuable, because they hear how you're speaking it. and then they can make the adjustment if necessary or accept what you've put out there.
Okay.
Most of
Anybody
my
else
books
want to
have been-
read?
Bye, Dina.
Hi, Dina.
Thank you.
Bye.
Most of my books have been nonfiction, and one of the problems with nonfiction books is that they can have these incredibly long sentences with incredibly long lists of things, and it's really hard to make them sound right when you're talking.
And engaging. Yeah, you got to keep, it's like, yes, exactly.
Yes, you might be doing this in your church, community, family, or social group, but but you should instead make sure that you are passionate, blah 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 blah, and it's all in one sentence. And
yeah,
I know, and it's hard to stay on that upbeat or that connected when it gets to be so wordy. You're like, okay, we could have like eliminated this whole sentence because of that. Does anybody else want to read before we?
I wouldn't mind if that's okay.
Yeah, please. This is exactly what this forum's for.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. The story of Jerry and the dog. What I'm going to tell you has something to do with how sometimes it's necessary to go a long distance out of the way in order to come back a short distance correctly. Or maybe I only think it has something to do with that. But it's why I went to the zoo today, and why I walked northerly rather, until I came here. All right, the dog. I think I told you. It is a black monster of a beast. An oversized head, tiny, tiny ears, and eyes, bloodshot eyes. Infected, maybe? And body. You can see the ribs through the skin. The dog is black, all black. All black except for the bloodshot eyes. And yes, and an open sore on its right forepaw. That's red too. And oh yes, the poor monster. And I do believe it was an old dog.
great tone, awesome tone. It's soothing. You got a voice that's very engaging just by speaking. It's really, really good.
Thank you.
Constructive wise, that would be breathing, but that comes with learning, talking out loud for long times and relaxing. Just, shoulders up, shoulders down, breath, and just go for it and read. And breathe when you feel you need to breathe. And sometimes it's a run through, but man, you got a great soothing voice for this. You're going to be great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with the constructive comment on the breathing. One thing you might want to try to is just to move away from the mic and come back.
Yeah.
And then you won't have as many takes. And I'm sure too, part of it is like a bit of pressure because we're all here watching.
Yes.
So there's a bit of nerves there. But I like your tone. I like your pace a lot.
Good speed.
Yeah, good speed.
Yeah,
Thank you.
really engaging. It kept me wanting to hear more, like,
Okay.
what happens after this? Now, after listening to everybody, now I really want to know what happens with this dog.
Well,
I think it was another example of you getting better as you kept going.
Right.
And I have a little different take on the breaths, because there at the end, when you really were into this over the last half of it, and you were breathy, I actually liked that. It was like it showed me something. I don't know. It was emotive to me. I don't think it would work on some other script, but I think for that, actually, I liked it.
That's good.
And I think too, it lends itself to that conversational dialogue. You're telling us about this dog and you're kind of excited about it. So I think the breath is good there in that area. Earlier on, when you're more narrating and you're explaining what's happening, I think it should be less breathy.
Right.
but, and just a bit quiet. I don't know if it's the distance from the mic, but to be consistent with that.
Well, a lot of things when people don't realize when they're speaking into the mic, you don't necessarily always want to be right in the mic. Sometimes you're going to hear a lot of hissing and stuff if depending on your noise gate, if you have a noise gate, it'll turn on and off and it'll get this flush. So a really good thing when you're narrating is to actually not just hang 10, but hang 10 off to the side. If you have a half decent microphone, it's gonna pick you up just fine. I go under just a little bit to the side, just a titch, and I stay there, and it helps with plosives, mouth noise, and all that stuff, and anything really explosive, like if you were to peek out or something. But just to find your distance, that was a main huge thing for me, to find my distance and be consistent with that. That was huge with me in the first 6 to 8 months of working. I couldn't figure anything out, but I realized, yeah, I was hanging 10, I'd hang 5, I'd hang everything, but I'm still getting all these little weird sounds. You picked up every noise. I just sit here with my mouth open and you hear everything that's going on in your mouth. I have a really half decent mic, but oh my God, once I found that sweet spot, I started getting my flow as well, because the fear went away, the anxiety of, I have to say that, the same word 20,000 times and record, and the frustration goes away and you learn to relax. And so mic placement, huge, I found.
Okay, and what did you say about if I have a I'm sorry, I forget the word that you said, but something, a blocker or some
plosives? You mean
I think she was talking about a gate.
A gate.
The noise gate. Yeah. So a lot of people will have a noise gate. So a noise gate is where it's actually like a gate. It will open and shut the doors of your microphone as you're speaking, and depending on your ratios, because there's little ratio things that you can open the door, have it more sensitive than normal. So what it really helps with is if you have a really high noise floor, if your noise floor is at like 20, 30, 40, or 50 even, it helps to, so when I'm speaking, my microphone will turn on very subtly. Some people take the ratios too extreme, where they open the door too much and they keep the door open long for too long, or it's really crisp. So doors are opening. So every time I speak, you're hearing my microphone and everything else that's going on. Mm-hmm. When I stop speaking, it's a smart thing. It shuts the door, so it hears nothing. Okay. But there's a ratio where you want to make sure you find your sweet spot. So that's some working. I have, like I said, I guess I cheat a little bit in Audacity because I have external hardware. I use a DBX, a 286S DBX, and that has a de-esser on it, my compression, noise gate, and all that, and then it goes through my computer and into Audacity. But I found it's a set it and what's the saying? Set it and forget it.
Set it and forget it.
Set it and forget it.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing for me. But it's that's it. That's all. But I'm a long form narrator. I don't really have to change my levels that much. I don't,
Okay. And so, is that something in Audacity, this gate you're talking about, something you set up in that?
Guys?
You can, but it's in your microphone setup as well.
Microphone setup. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and so preferences or something?
Yeah, do some digging on your microphone, Pamela, and you'll see some noise gate in there. Let me share my screen for this here. In here, noise gate. So it has some, can you see my noise gate screen?
I can, yeah.
So it has some pre-setups in here. So what you could do is you can record your room with no sound. So you're just sitting in there
Yeah.
and let it record for like, 30 seconds. And then do recording and measure your noise gate and see what it comes through as. So on your recording here, if you go into your analyze and do an ACX check,
Okay.
it will show you your noise floor
Okay.
setting in here, and well, all your settings, and then you can kind of play with where to make any adjustments.
Okay. Very
And-
nice. Thank you.
And there, I'm sure there's a lot of tutorials on YouTube, specifically on noise gate and Audacity. So this
Okay.
is how I learned. I learned everything. Yes, I had a mentor, engineer, audio engineer, but I didn't want to bother him all the time. So I've done a lot of YouTube and a lot of tutorials, a lot of research, and
Well, and I think we all feel that way, Ness, because we also don't want to look stupid. So we want to do some of the research ourselves, right? So
Yeah.
we at least know what the problem is or where maybe it could stem from.
Mhm.
So
My ACX doesn't have a noise gate. Was that a plugin that you got?
mine's showing the noise floor, right? Let's just see.
Mine looks, excuse me, I said ACX. My Audacity doesn't look like yours.
I don't have
okay,
a noise gate either.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you can
Must
still
be a
see
plugin.
if you can still see my screen,
Right.
can you see my manage plugins here?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to scroll down until you see noise gate
Right.
and then enable it.
I see.
Okay.
Okay. And a little earlier, Pam, we were talking about enabling and disabling these. So when you have your drop down menu, you don't see all the stuff you don't require. Basically, just clean it up to have in there exactly what you use in your editing chain or your
Okay.
editing sequence, and then you can just get rid of the rest. It'll
Okay.
always be in here. It's just not always showing as active.
Okay.
So when you go up here, I only have in here what I use or what I want to check out.
Okay. All right. I'll have to check all those. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm mostly just experimenting and, trying to figure out what works the best for you, because the way your voice is and then how it goes through the microphone, and then when you bring it into Audacity, all of that's going to be different for you than myself.
Yeah.
And also when you're reading, you're going to have a different tone for certain books. If it's educational, you're going to be a little more maybe motivational, right?
Mhm.
Versus a scary story, let's say, more brooding.
Right.
And you shouldn't have to change your noise gate. It'll figure out your natural tone of your voice, but
Okay.
it'll be really specific to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just
right.
went through
You want
my,
it?
Updates are always really good though for bugs and little things that they fix and stuff, but I'm going to suggest never doing it in between a project.
Yeah, never.
No, don't
I
do
have
it.
everything in my plugins is enabled.
Mine
I've
too.
Everything is enabled.
It's by
don't know.
default. So just go in and disable all the stuff that you never look at. Do your like core 6 or something, or ones that you might use once in a while. That's what I did. And then
Okay.
your
Do you
and then
think
your
it has
thing
to
won't be
do
as
with-
long.
Do you think it? Oh yeah. Does it take it out of the list?
Yes, it's so great.
What?
I
Scroll
know.
down to limiter every time. It's
Let me
like,
show you
first world
guys.
problems, please.
Let me show you. So you go to effects.
And the latest version is the 2.4.2. I just looked.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
So you go to effects. So I don't need to do, let's say, crossfade clips. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to look for crossfade clips. Disable.
Oh my God.
Click
off the
OK.
list.
Now look at smaller.
Oh my God.
Okay, I'll go remove crossfade tracks. So I'm like, I was deleting all these and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll keep those in because I don't exactly know what they do, but I'm deleting it now. And then you go down and now look.
Oh my God. I'm never going to need a rhythm track.
You know, everything actually in mine is grayed out. It says it's all enabled, but when I go to my effects, when I go in there,
Your
they're all
tab?
gray.
You have to
Ah.
have a file open.
Yeah.
Open
Yeah.
a
Oh,
Have a,
recent
you have,
file.
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, then
Yeah,
it'll
and
be
sometimes something has to be highlighted for it to even, yeah.
for it
Gotcha,
to give
sorry.
you the, yeah, no,
That's okay.
we've
I
all
just
been there.
figured that out myself. So
okay.
Pseudonyms. So why do you have a pseudonym, Dave?
Just because I was in radio for 45 years and nobody could understand the word swordlaw. is my
Oh,
last
so
name.
is Arlington in your family?
No, I grew up in Arlington, Virginia.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Or do you guys have pen names? Pam or Jenny? No.
No.
Are you going to?
I've thought about it, but I've heard just from, I don't know, just from a few people, not many, but that it just it can become difficult, especially if you wanted to change back to your, you know, your original name. That let me put it this way. I guess it was recommended to me only if you were doing like maybe erotica or something like that, maybe that you don't want associated with your name. But other than that, I was told that it doesn't really matter. I guess it's all just a personal choice.
Yeah,
Well,
I
it's
don't know
also,
either.
you know, whether you want somebody to be able to search you and find more about you.
Right. Yeah. If you wanted to like protect your privacy a little bit more, maybe sort of thing. Is that what you mean, David?
Yeah, gee, I really
Yeah.
like that Pamela Dawson's voice on this. Let me learn something. Oh my goodness, she lives in such and such. Oh, here's
Right.
her address. Here's her email.
Right.
Never thought of that. I have a pretty public life, like a podcast as well. So everything is under my name. I have done a couple of the erotica genre books under a pen name
Yeah.
because the money's good. But I also don't want it being associated with my professional life either. Right.
Right.
But it's, I mean, they're different to do and the money's good. But yeah, I have changed my name for those. And I know some people just have pen names because they want this different persona as well. So you have like your audiobook life and then you have your regular life. So it's kind of, I mean, I guess it's preference.
But people do make assumptions. If you have an unusual name, people make assumptions. I mean, if you, all right, so if you searched, if you knew anything about my last name, you'd find out pretty easily that I'm Jewish.
Right.
Okay.
And yet the book I'm doing now is all about the Gospels. And I just don't think that he'd want, I mean, he doesn't know I'm Jewish. And I don't know that, you know, narrated by David Swordlaw. I don't think that works. So I have a very, it could be anything pen name, but all of you have very anything real names. So, so I mean, you know, easy to remember, you know, very, I'll say all North American, you know.
Right. Yeah. Very common North American names.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting too, like you and I talked a bit about this, David, with the reading, you know, one religion and maybe you are an atheist.
Yeah.
Or so I think there's a separation between being your moral compass leading you and having a job.
Right. I mean, we
or
all
doing a gig because it doesn't really have that much weight.
We all have a line. I mean, some people would not do any erotica. I'd do it, but I think I'd not be good at it and I'd be embarrassed by it. So I wouldn't do a good job, so I really wouldn't do it. But I have no moral reason not to do it, although I'm sure that there are some books that I'd say, no, I'm not going there. You know, you know, there's erotica and there's erotica.
Right.
But I guess I don't have any, I mean, I don't have any problem, you know, quoting biblical passages I don't believe in, but other people might. I did these travel books. I did a travel book for a writer who has bestsellers. but his bestsellers are religious books, and he's an extremely fundamentalist author. It happens to be fundamentalist Catholic, and he believes that you should be a one-issue voter, that anyone who believes in X can't ever get your vote. I will never do one of his religious books. But on the side, he writes books about hiking. So I did one of his hiking books. I'll do his hiking books all day, but I'll never do one of his other books.
Interesting.
I think everybody has a line.
Right.
You do, what books won't you do? I mean, when I did commercials, when I worked in radio, I mean, I wouldn't do political commercials for someone I didn't endorse.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it's definitely finding, you know, what to a certain level, stuff that you don't mind doing, you know, whether it's something you believe in or not, but you don't mind doing, versus things that you really don't believe in, you know, or really have a hard time with, you know, and just having to make that distinction and choice for yourself.
Yeah.
What about book lengths though? Like I did a 19-hour book on a workshop about MCBT, so your mindfulness, cognitive, behavioral, blah, blah. And I absolutely loved the book. It was like a learning process for me too. Like it was valuable for me to read it, and I enjoyed the part, and it was like an educational resource, and it's my absolute top seller by hundreds of times.
Wow.
And I'm like, it was so easy for me to do this book. But then like some of my character books, like I haven't done a lot of them because I started kind of like you, David, I started in this where I would be just all like a resource or educational versus some sort of a novel about whatever characters. But I found them both fun to do, but definitely my educational ones have sold so much better than anything else.
Huh.
And they're like the easiest ones to do because you don't have to, you could literally cold read it the whole way through because you don't have to think about emotion or character or anything, right? But I don't know, like I even applied to, or I auditioned for Jewish books because there's a lot of them. You probably saw those. And maybe they won't accept my voice because I don't have a Jewish last name either. Like, I wonder if it's on both sides.
Both sides, yeah.
Moss can be anything, but so I don't think that's a problem. But yeah, I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know either. But
It's
I liked.
But is the market telling you that you should be doing these other books that you find?
Obviously.
But you have fun doing the other ones.
Yeah, so I try to apply for both to see, just to kind of keep me active in it as well. And then I don't mind some of the longer ones either. I don't mind getting into a project for the next, 2 or 3 or 4 months, especially something that's 20 hours. Like it's a big commitment, but then you kind of get into the groove of that book and you're fine. Instead of doing 10 little ones, you're doing, one big one.
So how did you know that this 20-hour book, just from, I mean, you accepted this book without knowing that much about it. We don't know that much about the books.
Right. So what I did was like some of when you get into ACX is you get inundated with all this bullshit that's out there, right? All of these scammersons.
Yeah.
So after I did a few scammerson books, I started to do some research on like the rights holder versus the author and who actually owns the book. And then I would find out, well, how are you marketing it and who do you use for marketing? And, if they're not forthcoming with that, it's kind of a red flag to me.
Right.
If they're not.
I mean, that's one thing but my question was.
I know, but wait. I'm getting to it. So what I did was I reached out to the authors of the book because it was somebody else that had it up on ACX that wasn't one of the authors. So I did some research on the authors and they were all very well known. So they all had white papers and they all currently teach at school, and they're all in psychology and they all have accolades. So I thought, well, and they already had lectures on the subject that I was recording. So I thought, well, this could probably be something more than a newbie author. And then, yeah, it's proven to be my top seller. So I don't have a lot of reviews on it at all, because it's like boring content. Unless you're kind of in that frame of mind, your average Joe is not going to listen to this book, right? But yeah, I don't know. And it was the long book too. It was one of the longest books I had done. So it was 19 hours and I completed it at 15 hours, which I was nervous about because I didn't know like how accurate is the numbers versus how accurate is your time to reflect. But it had like a ton of testimonials in there, which increases the word count, but doesn't necessarily increase the time one for one, if that makes sense, because they're like little blurbs along the sides of, all the pages. But it was a really interesting read and a really good book to have in my portfolio, just based alone on length.
Valerie, when you said it, it was a 20-hour book, are you meaning finished hours, or are you talking total okay, finished hours?
Oh no, finished.
Okay.
They say it's about 3 times. So if you do a 3-hour book, it's about 9 hours of work.
Okay.
So when you talk about your project length, it's finished hours.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I like kind of the longer ones because then you can marry into the project and really own, the thought process through it all. I liked that about it. No commercials.
Scares me.
I've never done any commercials though, David. So you're probably like, could whip those off in seconds here and there.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid that the same criticism that I get from coaches about my narrations, I get worse on my voiceover, because they say, "Oh, you're an old radio guy. You sound like an old radio." And I get that a lot.
Oh.
So, because voiceover is very different. I mean, now, except for the local announcers who are screaming about a car deal,
Yeah.
everything now is so conversational and quirky.
Well, David, I'm by no means an authority in it, but I didn't think you sounded like a voice or a radio narrator when you read today. And I know it was a very small snippet, but
it's
just
what
my
I
2
get.
cents.
That's why Paul Liberti didn't let me get past my name.
So obviously Paul knew that about you going into it. So you're a bit maybe stigmatized into that category. I would maybe, if it is a concern for you, maybe on your bio, you just say microphone experience or something other than radio announcer, however you want to put yourself in that category. Because I think.
So Valerie, if you don't mind my asking, how long have you been doing voiceover? Has it just been since COVID?
No, so I started kind of as a side hustle. I had a podcast. I have a podcast. And then I thought, well, since I have all this gear and everything, why don't I start doing some voiceover work and see if I can make a little money? Okay. So it was a side gig, actually. And then I really like it. Okay. I really like it a lot. So I kind of transitioned in, it's been about a year and a half, maybe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably a year, 18 months or something like that since I've been really committed. I've done about 30, 35 books.
Wow.
Amazing. In that short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, the majority has been this year, like the COVID year for sure.
Right.
But
well, like I said, I've only been trying to do this for 6 months, and it's kind of, like you said, it's a side gig for me, but I don't always have a lot of time to put in this. And I know I have some definite huge learning curve that I need. But I feel like I'm missing something huge. You know, and so I'm trying to figure out what that is, because
like missing something in your personal life creatively, or
I'm
missing
sorry.
something.
No, like, because I have auditioned for several different things. I auditioned for e-learning and narration, you know, and some self-help books, you know, that sort of thing. And I've just got no response, nothing. And so, and I know that can happen, and I'm not expecting anything quick by any means, but I'm worried I'm missing something, to where either I'm not doing right, or maybe I'm too narrow focused or something, you know, with what I'm.
I mean, I think it's like anytime we put ourselves out there and, you know, you're kind of vulnerable. Like I've submitted, I don't know, I think I have 20 auditions out, and I've just been getting like, no on everything lately.
Yeah.
And I think too, like you become, I know for me, I become like hypersensitive too. Like, am I auditioning for the wrong thing? Or, you know, maybe I should have researched the author or the rights holder more to know if I'm in line with what they're looking for. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think if you feel like you're missing something, maybe you are. But I also think too, like maybe you just don't have enough out there yet to know where you fit in.
Okay.
Like if it's, I mean, I've even auditioned for poems, like get a couple of poems under your belt, right? And see if maybe you can shine in that genre. I mean, they're small and short and super personal. And maybe you can strike something there. I don't know. Like it's really, like I have done 2 horror stories, and for whatever reason, I really like them. And the authors that have hired me really like my voice. So that's kind of like a neat market, especially around Halloween. I had a couple that I put out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like if you feel like you're missing something, like maybe just change your project length. Maybe go for something like that's really short, and see if you can get like a couple of different things in there, or really long, and do like a like a self-help guidebook or something like that.
Okay. And definitely try that.
I've been wondering, since I'm new, I'm just working on my first book right now, but I'm wondering, you know, I keep auditioning, and I know that you just have to, as you say, you just have to throw it out there and not take it personally that you're not getting it. But sometimes I wonder if it's sort of a catch-22 at the beginning, because they don't want to hire you because you have no experience. So you don't get hired, so you don't get experience, you know. You just somehow have to break through that wall. And then when you've got work, they feel like they can trust you with their work. That's a thought that's been going through my mind. I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, and like, I mean, like some of the other ones we're talking to, like some of our early on books are like, ooh, right? Because we didn't know like all the shit we know now, to have it sound perfect and not have breathy and all these things that you learn over time. Like if they look up my name and listen to some of my early on books, like they're probably like, no way will I, you know, no way am I interested. But I don't know, like it's really, and I think that's why I wanted to start this group too, is because we need to be able to bounce these questions off of each other. Like, am I crazy, or is this genre right or not right for me? And like that little note that I shared earlier, like it may not be your genre, even though you like it, but maybe you're suited in something else.
That's very true.
Like who would have known like this mindfulness book would be my top seller.
Right.
And it's the one that was like the least exciting for me to read.
And what do you guys think about the doing the what is it, the pay to plays? Have you guys heard of those? So I've recently was introduced to the pay to play. So you actually, it's you actually pay to audition, but it's, I don't know, supposedly you get more work and you get critiques or something back off it. I haven't looked a lot into it. I've been warned off of it saying you have no need to pay to audition, but from another place, I've been told, no, absolutely. You know, the small amount that you pay to be able to audition here, you're going to get back tenfold. So I didn't know if you guys knew anything or had any experience
So
with that.
there's, is it voices.com? There's a couple of them that you like pay for memberships at. And I've heard, same as you, Pam, like things like, why would you pay for a membership when they're always going to select the top performers? Like you're saying, Jenny, like if this person has 300 gigs, I'm going to give it to that person who has 300 gigs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, it's like that until the underdog just so happens to read, you know, S.E. Hinton's book or, you know, some famous author, and then they're now the top guy. Like, you never know when you're going to kind of break through. Like Nessie was talking one session about, she has a bundle. She's doing like, I think 3 or 4 book bundle. They sound like super great to do, but it gets really boring. Like you're stuck in this bundle for hours and hours and hours, and you're hoping you're going to make it right from this bundle and get some residual income. But I don't know, like if you don't have a long history of it, will it be as lucrative or not? So hard to know, right? I mean, we're not in this to, you know, retire, but it's nice to have a project that is satisfying and you make a little money out of. You know, it keeps you current and gives you something to do.
I mean, so the other thing is, Jenny, of course, looking at, you know, just royalty share books that even if, you know, they're not going to make any money, their experience.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to make any money on my Italian
travel
book. It's not going to, you know, it's not going to make any money. You know, it's been downloaded 17 times. You know, I'm not making it. It's a pure royalty share book. I'm not going to make any money.
Right.
But it's a well-known author, and I thought it was worth doing for that.
But you never know, like there could be some movie that comes out about hiking in Italy and then all of a sudden your book sells.
Yeah.
Like you just
but this religious book, and I did an earlier book by this guy, is, you know, the previous one hasn't been downloaded at all.
Wow.
But I was being, that wasn't a royalty share. He's paying me per finished hour, and so I got paid. So
Nice.
it's like, hey, I don't care if nobody buys it.
Right.
But
you still get your money.
Still got my money, but you know, sometimes the royalty share books are good. You know, even if they're not going to make any money, they're good practice, and you know.
Yeah,
and even like when you're
practical advice, because a lot on the Facebook pages, they talk about making sure you find the royalty share books that are, you know, going to make you money. But, you know, maybe as a beginner, you should just settle for what you can get, even if they're not big money makers. They don't have high sales rankings on Audible or whatever.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. And I think to gain your confidence in doing a book, to take some of these low per hour, even though people in some of these groups would not agree with what I'm saying.
Yeah, see, that's the big controversial.
I know, but we're talking about our peers though, right?
Right.
So people who are looking for a book on meditation, they're looking for a book on meditation. They're going to like your voice and buy your book. It has nothing to do about how much you got paid, if it's a royalty share or not, and who knows what about it. Nobody knows anything about that except us.
Right.
And if you take that book for 50 to 100 per finished hour bracket, not one person knows that except you. Nobody else knows. Nobody else that's buying the book knows. Nobody else in ACX groups know. Nobody on Facebook will know. But
you've got the book on your resume.
You
You
have
did
the
it.
book on your resume, you're proud of it, you did a good job, and you got one under your belt.
Yeah.
And that's the way I looked at it. And I wasn't in any groups when I started. I was like backyard garage starting out. I had no idea about anything. It was like off the seat of my pants. And I have a few of those. And you know what? They encouraged me to move on and do another one. And it gave me confidence, and it gave me something to look forward to. And I learned a shit ton doing those. And they paid me for them.
I have to tell you though, all right, so my opinion of those has changed tremendously in just a few months.
Okay.
So I auditioned for a book, and it was not a very, it didn't pay me hardly anything. And for some reason, the rights holder took 4 months to choose a narrator. I don't know if they just lost interest in it. And then 4 months later, they said, all right, I want you to do this book. And over those 4 months, I decided I'm not going to waste my, I'm not like you. I'm retired, and it doesn't matter. This isn't important to me,
right,
career-wise that much. I'm not unemployed. I'm retired. So I just decided, if he only wants to pay me $50 per finish hour, I'm just not going to do it anymore. And I wrote the person. I said, I want you to look at the economics of what you're asking.
Yeah, exactly.
And I explained it to him, and he found it very interesting. But he's going to find somebody who's going to do it for cheap.
Right.
But it is slave labor.
Right.
It ends up being, a quarter of minimum wage or something.
Right.
Right.
Yes, and I understand the mathematics of that, and I understand what the argument is on the Facebook page, that you shouldn't settle.
Well, or enable them.
Yeah.
Or
Or
enable,
enable them,
exactly.
right.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
but yes, it
Creating-
does give you
Experience.
So but
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
like-
if I can't get hired for something higher, then I'm stuck with zero.
Mhm.
I have no job, I've got nothing to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think you have to look at it that way too. Like for me, like I love to do it so much that I mean, I'm not taking anything now because I have so much experience, but I love to do it so much, and just to be connected to my microphone and telling somebody's story, like it's just so fun for me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why I'm even looking at the volunteering, opportunities. You get paid nothing, and you have to work
Yeah.
your ass off even harder than through ACX.
but
and
they
it's
might be more
volunteering.
interesting titles.
Well, they have like it's more YA titles,
Yeah.
and some of it is long chapter books. But again, it's like I really love to do it. I'm okay with doing it for, I have a podcast as well, so all of this I like.
What
And
is your podcast on?
it's on Eat, Read, Create. So I talk about food. I talk about books and reading. I love to read, so now I narrate. And then I create, so I quilt and sew, and I do DIY projects and make wooden things. Like it's just
All your
I
interests.
noticed your wall art.
Behind you.
yeah, all of this is
Yeah.
all me. I use it all for my sound barrier in my studio, and
It's beautiful. I noticed
thank
it
you.
earlier. That's so neat.
oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm on my desktop, so I can't really show, but I'll post a video now that I'm more set up in here. But yeah, so I mean, I podcast for free. I like it.
Nice.
And if you want to have experience, and there's a book, like I did 2 books on Wicca. I loved them both.
Oh,
Like it's a different genre. You don't have to do
Absolutely.
characters. You figure out your breath, you figure out your pace, you own your tone. All of that is just so important when you're starting out.
Yeah.
Get rid of the nervousness. I don't know.
So how many different I don't know, I guess platforms do you guys go and like
to look for work on? Like, do you guys do, I have a couple of them, like Fervor, do you guys do Upwork? You know, obviously ACX, but, you know, how many different things are you guys going on looking for work on?
I have probably 3 or 4.
Okay.
I don't do Fiverr because I think that it's really super cheap, like
Okay.
worse than our lowest per finished hour through ACX.
Uh-huh.
I find ACX is probably the most forthcoming with audition availability.
Mm-hmm.
There's a new one that was sent to me from this group, actually, ahabtalent.com. And that one, it could be like a Covoco, however you say that. Covoco was another like talent one that was really a scamming system. They gathered all your information, but there was no back end. So I'm almost feeling like that with AHAB because I can't see any auditions on there at all. Okay. There's one called Spoken Realms. That's another one that I use. And then Audio Flow, the Audio Flow. And they actually put out casting calls. They're really, really organized.
Audio Flow?
Yeah, the Audio Flow. And that one, they put out series and books, and they have like, it's really descriptive. So male point of view, female point of view, what the characters, right. There's background history on them. Like it's really, they're very organized. But ACX, I find, just has such a good, well-rounded gamut of everything.
I have a lot.
Yeah, it's not just YA, it's not just nonfiction.
Not everything. There's if you want nonfiction that might pay you something, there's almost none. You
and I were kind of talking about that.
And that's why I'm looking for these other places. It's because it's mainly authors who aren't famous authors, and they're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
I wish I was better at fiction.
I know.
The voices thing is kind of trips me up a little bit because I'm not naturally, honestly, a very expressive person. At least I don't think so when I talk. I've been told a lot. I have a very soothing, almost a teaching, you know, sort of voice and tone. I've been told that a lot, but I've been told also that I have to work on my more expressiveness, and I'm not that way as a person, and so that's a huge thing I have to work on personally, especially to be able to do these fiction books like I would like to.
We all have that. Like every single one in this group feels that way, that they can be better with expressing certain words or be better with dialogue. So like for me, I have this one guy that I go to on YouTube, and he does these voices, and he teaches you how to just change your voice just a little teeny tiny bit to get another character. And he was the one that inspired me to at least try it. And so like I figured out like my really scary voices from this guy.
I mean, yeah, you can do horror stuff and
and just be like, you know, the devil and like this the comment I said earlier about that woman who does the young adult novels and all these quirky characters. Like, how would you even know if you didn't try out?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I think, and I've done this, some auditions, and I've tried to do like a totally different narrating style, you know, come across as like a really like obnoxious storyteller to see if, you know, that's what they want. And like one of them I was like, oh shit, now I gotta like really come, you know, really like put this to the test, you know. I don't know, like have fun with auditions. Somebody else said to like to do auditions as your warm-up. So get like 5 of them, and then before you go and do your actual studio work, just do your auditions and warm up your voice that way.
Well, that's a good idea.
Do different characters. Try reading the same thing in like 4 different voices
4
to
different
really
things.
like learn the voice. Yeah,
So
so
That's
but
good.
unless I can find other platforms, I'm going to be doing, if I'm going to do a lot of auditions, I'll be doing auditions for things that I'm not strong in. I'll be doing what you did, but it turns out you're strong in that because you got the book.
well, you know, I haven't gotten a lot of books either though, right?
Yeah.
It just depends. Like some of the stories I auditioned for because I would actually read that book. I think it sounds interesting.
Right.
Mhm.
So if you were a reader anyways, why not
Yeah.
read a book that you're interested in and narrate something that you like?
I'd love to do science fiction, but science fiction always has loads of characters and action, and
Yeah.
it
I
seems
know.
so hard and foreign to me.
And some
I
of
love
the
Right.
reading it. I just don't think I could narrate it.
and some of the names for the science fiction books is like, I'm already stumped. Like I can't even get through the audition because I don't even know how to say the names.
Right.
Like the character names.
The character names.
Yeah.
Said
Yeah.
Dumbledore. Like how many times would you like just like say what? Like what is this person's name? You know,
Well, I
so
have
fun.
heard in the talking with some other people that, you know, it's always hard to when you're stumped on knowing how to pronounce things, is that usually you can always ask the author or the you know, the producer or whatnot, how do you want this pronounced, you know, and such. Because I've heard some names on some audiobooks that I go, that's not how you read that, or how at least how I read it. So I think sometimes it's always a little different for everyone, because I definitely, you know, when I'm reading, I'm a huge avid reader. I read tons of books all the time. When I'm narrating it in my head, you know, and everything, it never comes out that way, you know, when you're trying, never comes out that way when you're trying to do it recording. But yeah, like some of these names, everybody has a little bit different sometimes way of pronouncing it, or different inflection on different vowels or whatnot. And they always sound a little different.
Yeah, we kind of touched on that before you joined. So one thing that I do is I will do a voice note in my phone and I'll send it to the rights holder saying, is this how you pronounce this name? Take 1, blah, take 2, blah.
Yeah.
And then they'll hear your voice to pronounce it instead of it being like something that you type out. How do you pronounce this name? You know, you have like, you know, capital letters to enunciate or whatever. Like it's better just to do it in your voice, and then they hear your voice and then they can tell how you pronounce it.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of nonfiction, I spend a lot of time on YouTube finding out how to pronounce names of famous people that I've never heard of, or historical figures or whatever.
It's so hard.
I mean, it was like, all right, so I don't even know like the New Testament. So I had to learn how to say the Colossians. I'd never heard of the Colossians before, but apparently there are letters to the Colossians just like there are letters to the Ephesians.
Oh, interesting.
Huh.
So can you do that through like that pronunciation?
I don't find those very
effective, like very
they differ.
accurate.
So what I tend to do is I look for somebody giving a lecture,
sermon,
a sermon, or I mean, I had never heard of Haggai. That was a prophet, Haggai. And
so maybe when you're saying that, don't say it as a question.
Exactly. There's a preacher I just looked up, apparently world famous. He just died. Morris Cerullo. I never heard of him, but
yeah. I know. I did this Buddhism book.
Yeah.
Oh, it
wow.
was like there were so many shavasanas and all these different.
Find how to say them all.
Oh, I listened to every Indian giving every kind of pose, and like it took me so long, and I swear to God, even to this day, they probably are like Shavasana, like everything is a question because they were, or, you know, I pronounce them super slowly because that's the only way I could get my mouth to actually form every consonant that I came upon. That's all learning and fun.
Happily, you know, it's yoga, so
calm and reassuring and
yeah.